It all begins at the first Qinjing Academy in the Great Xi Empire, when a colossal beam of golden light descends from the heavens right into the courtyard. The surrounding crowd is left in shock, realizing this intense light is the sign of a rare awakening anomaly. At the center of all this power is Xiaoqing, the most highly anticipated prodigy in the entire academy. The other students start whispering, wondering if she is awakening a high-tier class or something even more powerful, given how pure the glow is. The principal watches proudly, celebrating that his luck has finally changed, right as the light begins to take the shape of a weapon. Right before everyone's eyes, a gigantic and imposing golden sword with wings appears, floating in the air. A delicate hand slowly reaches out to grasp the hilt of that sacred weapon. Suddenly, a majestic angelic entity appears in the sky and wields the giant sword, leaving everyone completely speechless. The principal is in absolute disbelief at the incredible level of this awakening. He announces to the crowd that Xiaoqing has awakened the epic 6-winged angel class, with the holy light sword as her starting gear. With the giant angel floating right behind her, the girl establishes herself as a true divine presence in the courtyard. The students go wild, cheering and celebrating the overwhelming power of the school's star. Amidst all the commotion, the young Wei Dao watches calmly, acknowledging that the girl's achievement is genuinely impressive. All of this is extremely important because 300 years ago, spatial portals appeared without warning, unleashing a true nightmare upon the planet. From these mysterious portals emerged monstrous and mutated beasts that attack civilizations, spreading destruction everywhere. It was from this tragedy that humanity awakened the power to gain combat classes and level up their skills. With this, people were finally able to defend themselves and stand up against the terrible creatures. The world practically turned into a survival game, where every battle counts toward making the human race stronger. The classes people can awaken are divided into 5 basic levels, ranging from the most common all the way to the epic rank. However, rumors say that above the epic tier, there are hidden and mysterious classes that almost no one knows about. That is why Wei Dao, who reincarnated on this game like Planet, studied hard every single day to stand out in today's test. Meanwhile, the principal congratulates Xiaoqing for being the first to achieve an epic class in the city this year. Right after, she starts walking back to her spot, passing right next to Wei Dao. Xiaoqing takes the opportunity to give him a challenging look, stating that she will finally show everyone who the real genius is around here. Her friends cheer, certain that now she will be able to surpass Wei Dao once and for all. But everyone's attention quickly shifts when the principal announces the next one to take the test is Wei Dao himself. The students start whispering, doubting that doing well on written exams guarantees he can awaken a class higher than Xiaoqing's. On the other hand, the principal remains hopeful that the boy can get another epic class to bring even more fame to the school. Wei Dao steps into position and begins his awakening process. He clenches his fist tightly, focusing all the energy that starts sparking around him. Suddenly, a colossal, glowing beam bursts from the ground up to the sky. But, amidst the golden glow, intimidating lightning bolts start cutting through the clouds. The sunny day vanishes in the blink of an eye, giving way to a shadowy darkness and a bone-chilling cold. When everyone looks up, they are met with a colossal skeletal figure floating amidst purple lightning. To make matters more intense, an entire army of imposing winged skeletons appears in the sky, startling the crowd. Even the principal is stunned, unable to understand what kind of bizarre anomaly the boy just summoned. Even knowing these are just projections, Xiaoqing feels a massive chill run down her spine. In the center of all that storm, Wei Dao flashes an excited smile, feeling his moment has finally arrived. He hopes for the best possible outcome as a giant whirlpool of pure energy engulfs the courtyard. With his arms wide open, the young man begins to receive the physical form of his new power. A strong purple shockwave spreads out, indicating the process is about to finish. But when the light finally fades, what appears floating in the air is a shovel. Wei Dao holds the object utterly confused, wondering why on earth he received a digging tool. The principal, looking a bit awkward, reads from the panel that Wei Dao has awakened the hidden undead summoner class, with a shovel as his starting item. In that instant, an awkward silence takes over the entire school courtyard. Right after, the other students burst into laughter, teasing that the school's top student just became a simple groundskeeper. Xiaoqing lets out a mocking chuckle, feeling she has won this rivalry once and for all. Wei Dao himself scratches his head, finding it very strange that such an intimidating anomaly resulted in just this. Determined to understand what happened, he opens his personal status screen to check his attributes. That is when he notices that, along with his class, he gained the triple-rank talent called Eternal Endurance, which allows him to stack summoning effects infinitely. Wei Dao realizes that, unlike common summoners who can only control one creature at a time, he has no such limit and will be able to create an entire spectral army. He also notices strange starting shovel must not be just any item and hides some valuable perk. Upon analyzing the gear's description, he discovers the tool allows him to dig holes and bury defeated foes to receive extra rewards. The boy flashes a huge smile, realizing he can mix business with pleasure, earning experience points and extra bonuses all at once. Then, the principal interrupts his thoughts, asking him to show his summoning skill right away to test his true power. Without missing a beat, Wei Dao extends his hand and activates his spectral summoning magic, causing a glowing magic circle to appear on the ground. Slowly, some bones start to emerge from within the purple circle. Right after, a single very basic and fragile skeleton finishes materializing in front of everyone. The principal looks confused and a bit disappointed to see the summon is just a skeletal mage, considered the weakest type of spectral being around. Trying to find something special, the man even taps the creature's head to see if it hides any secrets, but the little monster just gives a confused look. However, with just that light tap from the principal, the skeleton completely falls apart on the ground. Seeing that sad display, the other students start laughing out loud, saying his summon cannot even handle a simple flick. But instead of being shaken by the latter, Wei Dao just gives a very confident smirk. He agrees that just one low-level skeleton really wouldn't make a difference, but warns that the tables turn when things are done his way. With a calm and precise snap of his fingers, he activates his real trick. Suddenly, dozens of purple magic circles frantically spread all over the arena. The principal takes a step back, completely startled to see skeletons popping up from every side around him. A massive spectral horde begins to march, showing the true potential of Wei Dao's simultaneous summons. With a gigantic army under his silent command, the young man turns to the crowd and asks how they would handle all of that at once. The dozens of skeletons standing side by side create an intimidating scene that makes the entire courtyard shake with fear. The same students who were mocking him earlier now turn pale and speechless at the absurd number of monsters. Xu Xiaoqing realizes the intensity of the situation, understanding that, even if they are weak individually, their overwhelming numbers make up for any flaws. After the initial shock wears off, the principal deduces that this mass summoning power must be the effect of Wei Dao's hidden class talent. He praises the boy, commenting that despite the funny detail of his starting weapon being a shovel, his future as a summoner looks extremely promising. The man then asks Wei Dao to dismiss the summons, so the awakening ceremony for the other students can continue as normal. While recalling his army, Wei Dao thinks to himself that everyone there believes he can only bring these basic soldiers into the fray. He smiles, remembering the imposing legendary skeletal dragon he saw during his awakening anomaly, swearing that sooner or later, the colossal creature will be his. 1 hour goes by, and the awakening ceremony for all the students finally comes to an end. The principal takes the stage again to close the event and announces that the next day at 9 in the morning, everyone must head to the beginner's dungeon to start leveling up. Wei Dao thinks this is an excellent opportunity to earn extra points on the evaluation and can barely wait to begin the practical test. With the announcement of the school event's end, the crowd of students begins to scatter across the main courtyard. At that moment, a blonde young man approaches Xu Xiaoqing, saying he managed to awaken the Advanced Gale Swordsman class and invites her to form a team for the dungeon. Without paying him any mind, the girl walks right past him and rudely asks him to get out of her way. Instead of giving the blonde suitor the time of day, she runs toward Wei Dao and asks him to stop for a second. The young man turns around, curious as to what she wants with him right after the ceremony ended. Xu Xiaoqing says they still haven't truly decided who the best is, and challenges him to a direct competition inside the dungeon tomorrow. Wei Dao casually accepts the challenge, but laughs and warns her that her chances of beating him are still zero. The girl gets completely irritated by his teasing, grinding her teeth in pure frustration at being underestimated. Just then, the blonde student shows up furious, drawing his sword to defend Xiaoqing's honor. He points his weapon and threatens to break Wei Dao's legs to stop him from entering the dungeon, but the young man blocks the strike, using only the handle of his iron shovel. Seeing the commotion, Xu Xiaoqing immediately intervenes and tells the blonde guy, named Chuan Zihao, to back off once and for all. Embarrassed after being rejected by the girl, Chuan Zihao puts his sword away and warns Wei Dao that he got lucky to be spared today. He still makes one last arrogant threat before leaving, telling his rival to pray they do not cross paths tomorrow. Wei Dao just shows an ironic smirk, saying he will be eagerly waiting for that encounter. The next day, military transport convoys begin arriving at the academy's testing area. The first-year students gather in the huge arena that serves as the official starting point for the dungeon tests. Some of them chat anxiously in the hallways, talking about the 3 different secret realms that exist in that training region. Another classmate explains that rookies are only allowed to access the weakest area, known as the Barren Plain. While walking through the main courtyard, Wei Dao quickly spots Xu Xiaoqing watching him from afar with a serious look. She walks over and asks if he plans to join a group or go solo, and the boy replies without hesitation that he prefers to play solo. Xu Xiaoqing gives a competitive smile and decides she will also go in alone, so he cannot make any excuses when he is defeated. At that moment, the principal steps onto an elevated platform with a megaphone to give the final instructions to all the gathered youths. He explains that the dungeon test will last for 8 hours, that the minimum goal to secure points on the official exam is to reach level 3. The students listen very carefully, excited about the chance to finally test their new combat classes. The principal adds that taking down stronger monsters, such as elites, leaders, or area bosses, will grant excellent bonus points before declaring the official start of the challenge. Before them, an imposing blue portal leading to the Barren Plain dungeon opens in the center of the room. The students sprint frantically toward the portal, eager to secure the first wave of creatures and get a head start on the scoreboard. Wei Dao walks casually right behind them, finding it funny how his classmates are extremely hyped up and in such a rush. He decides it is also time to show a little enthusiasm and finally walks through the magical portal with his head held high. Taking his first step on the other side, he feels the soft grass beneath his boots. Looking around, Wei Dao realizes he is completely alone and deduces that all the students were scattered randomly across the massive plain. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise coming from a bush nearby and goes on high alert. To his surprise, a chubby and harmless-looking prairie marmot pops out of the brush, looking way too cute to be a dungeon monster. But in the blink of an eye, the little critter opens its mouth and lets out a bizarre and incredibly loud scream. Wei Dao is caught off guard and has to cover his ears immediately to try to muffle the creature's deafening noise. Suddenly, the marmot gains an absurd burst of speed and launches itself at the young man like a projectile. Leaving no time to react, the critter jumps straight at Wei Dao's face, catching him completely off guard. The animal bares its sharp teeth right in the boy's face, ready to deliver a painful bite. His eyes widen in shock, realizing that the seemingly harmless creature is much more aggressive than he imagined. Annoyed by the monster's audacity, Wei Dao tries to grab it any way he can to get it off his face. He finally manages to grab the marmot tightly by the neck, furiously complaining about the cowardly sneak attack he just endured. Without showing any mercy, the young man throws the creature to the ground and lands a solid kick to send it flying. The little monster lands on its back in the grass, letting out a sharp squeal from the impact of the strike. Wei Dao straightens his clothes while taking a deep breath, commenting that he would have lost a chunk of his face if he had not acted quickly to defend himself. With a dark look that says he will not let this slide, he warns the marmot that it will now have to face the consequences of attacking him. He extends his hand once again and activates his spectral summoning with sheer determination. But this time, it is not just one skeletal mage that appears, several of them sprout from the ground all at once. In total, 20 level 1 skeletal mages appear ready to strike, with burning flames focused in their hands. Wei Dao points at the startled marmot and orders his new squad to take it out once and for all. The skeletal mages unleash several massive fireballs in a coordinated strike toward the small target. A massive and loud explosion consumes the spot, leaving the creature with absolutely no chance to escape. When the smoke clears, the prairie marmot is lying defeated on the ground as its energy leaves its physical form. A system notification pops up confirming the monster's elimination and granting the boy 10 experience points. Wei Dao scratches the back of his neck, feeling a bit underwhelmed, realizing that earning only this much experience will make his journey to level 3 take quite a while. But he soon remembers he has an unbeatable trump card and decides to summon a colossal amount of servants to do the work for him. With a gigantic army at his disposal, the young man sets them to free attack mode with explicit orders to clear out every creature in that region. Meanwhile, in a comfortable school meeting room, a cup of hot tea is served peacefully. The principal of the second academy teases Principal Wang, asking if he really believes his students can win this year's competition. With an extremely confident smile on his face, Principal Wang takes a sip of his tea and says he has absolutely no doubt about it. The rival finds the boldness amusing, proudly recalling that his school managed to produce a student with an epic tier class this time. That is when a third principal decides to step in, letting the surprised colleague know that Principal Wang's academy not only has an epic class but also features a highly rare hidden class. Upon hearing that bombshell revelation, the man chokes badly and ends up spitting his tea all over the table. He quickly wipes his mouth and asks, completely shocked, if that is actually true or just a joke. Principal Wang confirms it with all the calm in the world, saying he can barely wait to see his new prodigies hunt elite monsters with ease. Back in the dungeon, the skeletal mages continue their tireless work of bombarding the fleeing marmots they find along the way. Giving the small rodents no break, the fiery explosions light up the skies of the plain non-stop from side to side. The animals try to run frantically for their safety, but end up cornered by the potent spells of the summons. While the relentless barrage takes place, Wei Dao simply lies on his back in the soft grass, laughing about how wonderful it is to fight without doing any physical work. Several notifications of experience point gains start floating on his screen every second, stacking up power incredibly fast. He flashes a relaxed smile, seeing his level rising rapidly without needing to lift a single finger, fully appreciating the unbeatable perks of his hidden class. Wei Dao decides he cannot just lie around being lazy and figures it is the perfect time to test the practical effect of his small iron shovel. Tool in hand, he walks over to the defeated marmot's form to lay it to rest and see what happens. He begins digging a hole in the dirt quite enthusiastically, humming a tune while doing the manual labor. Without much ceremony, he tosses the animal's little form into the newly made resting place. The young man wipes the sweat from his forehead after finishing the physical work of covering the hole with dirt. Now with the task properly completed, Wei Dao waits eagerly to find out what extra rewards the system will grant him. To his surprise, 3 mysterious items wrapped in spheres of light emerge from the earth straight into his inventory. The system panel details that he just obtained a simple bracelet that boosts all his basic attributes, along with some farewell incense that grants continuous experience, and a jar of spectral oil that enhances his stats. Wei Dao examines the items with a grimace, finding it a bit eerie that all his rewards are directly related to graveyard items. But, putting his prejudice aside, he decides to light the farewell incense immediately to see the practical effect of the magical purple smoke. Right away, a flood of notifications warning that he is gaining small continuous experience bonuses begins blinking non-stop before him. Thanks to this steady stream of points, a golden glow surrounds his body, indicating he easily leveled up to level 2. The system officially confirms his first evolution with a message congratulating him on achieving the new level. Wei Dao smiles from ear to ear, finding the unbelievable ease with which he is gathering power in this dungeon absolutely incredible. Hyped up by the result, he grabs the jar of spectral oil to test his second mysterious reward. He pours the dark viscous liquid directly onto his palm, instantly receiving a permanent boost to all his basic combat stats. Realizing the stuff actually works wonders, the young man decides to apply a bit more of the product without any hesitation. Wei Dao starts frantically rubbing the oil all over his body, causing dozens of stat increase messages to flash on his screen simultaneously. He lets out a shout of surprise, feeling an overwhelming surge of power course through all his veins after fully applying it. Upon checking his updated status panel, he is impressed to see that even if it only lasts for 10 minutes, the temporary attribute bonus is incredibly strong. Completely motivated by the excellent results, the young man throws the iron shovel over his shoulder and decides he will keep hunting and burying everything he comes across. However, his peaceful progress is interrupted when several system warnings start flashing, alerting him that the number of skeletal mages under his command is dropping rapidly. Wei Dao looks toward the horizon startled, hearing the sound of a massive explosion echoing across the plain. Amidst the smokescreen, a gigantic wild boar emerges furious, obliterating his skeletal mages with extreme ease. The system reveals the beast is a horned wild boar, a dangerous level 3 elite monster that possesses a devastating charge ability. Wei Dao finally understands why his basic summons are dropping like flies upon facing an opponent of that physical size. The monster roars threateningly, locking its furious red eyes directly on the young man. Wasting no time, the terrible boar activates its special ability and launches a destructive charge right at him. Realizing the imminent danger, Wei Dao tries to dodge quickly so he does not take the full force of the swift charge. He sprints as fast as he can across the open plain, yelling nervously for the giant beast to stay away. The wild boar continues its relentless pursuit with total fury, smashing everything in its path with its massive physical strength. The young man digs his heels roughly into the grass to try and change direction to buy some precious reaction time. He throws both hands back and commands a new group of skeletal mages to appear immediately to serve as a protective shield. The colossal boar collides directly with the makeshift bone barrier, creating a devastating impact. Even though the skeletons were completely pulverized by the brutal crash, their sacrifice was enough to finally slow the creature's momentum. Wei Dao stands up panting after falling, relieved he had enough skeletons to absorb that strike, which surely would have been critical. Determined not to give the beast another chance to counterattack, he activates his spectral summoning magic again at maximum output. He notices that while the enemy is extremely strong in direct attacks, it is very slow to change direction, making a surrounding strategy the perfect choice. The horned boar roars in confusion, finding itself completely cornered by an army of dozens of skeletal mages that popped up around it. Knowing the monster can only attack in one single direction at a time, Wei Dao orders all his servants to fire their fire spells simultaneously. A massive series of fiery explosions hits the wild boar from all sides mercilessly. With no chance whatsoever to withstand that relentless bombardment, the elite creature collapses defeated on the plains. At the exact same time, a powerful golden light surrounds Wei Dao, confirming that taking down the elite monster has bumped him straight to level 3. Besides the large amount of experience gained, the system reveals the defeated enemy dropped an elite tier boar leather armor. The boy smiles from ear to ear, noting that aside from leveling up, he just earned his first quality defensive gear. He immediately equips the shiny new leather armor, feeling an instant and significant boost to his strength and physical endurance. Even more motivated, he summons his trusty little iron shovel with determination to get back to his usual routine. Wei Dao comments that he cannot let such a high-quality elite target go to waste and begins digging a giant hole to put the boar to rest. As soon as the massive beast's burial is done, 2 large spheres of glowing light emerge from the site. But upon seeing he only got 2 items, the young man complains in disappointment to the system, finding that elite monster to be quite stingy compared to the common marmots from earlier. Wei Dao focuses his attention on the 2 spheres of light and notices they held 2 valuable skill books. He discovers the rewards are the Phantom Fire spell and the Skeletal Boar summoning spell, both extremely useful for expanding his combat arsenal. The young man instantly regrets complaining earlier and happily gives thanks, praising the system for being so generous. He does the math and realizes that, with his current spirit level, he will be able to summon over a dozen of these new bone boars without breaking a sweat. Wasting no time, the boy absorbs the knowledge and learns both new skills in the blink of an eye. The system confirms he successfully learned the rank G spells while a powerful purple aura begins radiating from his hands. Eager to test his new power, he extends his arms over a large magic circle and activates the Skeletal Boar summon. A colossal bone beast appears with an intimidating roar, revealing itself to be a level 3 elite monster with the same destructive charge ability as before. Wei Dao celebrates the excellent result, knowing his leveling speed will now increase tremendously. Suddenly, a devastating sharp golden beam of energy cuts through the sky in a nearby forest. Spotting the massive destructive power of that sword technique, the young man wonders curiously who could be fighting in that area. At the sight of the explosion, the arrogant Chun Zihao stands over a defeated elite stone turtle, telling 2 other students to get lost if they do not want trouble. One of the students complains furiously, saying they were the first to find that elite creature, and that he has no right to steal their target. Chuan Zihao replies with a cynical smile, coldly stating he has every right simply because he is much stronger than the two of them combined. Watching hidden behind a tree, Wei Dao realizes what is going on and deduces that the rival can only unleash such potent strikes because he bought a full set of expensive gear using his family's wealth. Out of patience for talking, the blonde warrior raises his glowing sword and unleashes a sweeping strike to push the two boys away. The golden shockwave hits the students head-on, sending them flying back with severe damage. Taking advantage of the distraction caused by the fight, the massive elite stone turtle tries to crawl away as fast as it can to escape. Chuan Zihao notices the escape attempt and prepares to deliver a finishing blow on the creature to secure his points. But before he can strike, dozens of skeletal mages controlled by Wei Dao suddenly pop out from the bushes. The summons fire a concentrated barrage of fireballs straight at the defenseless turtle. The blonde swordsman steps back surprised by the sudden explosion, completely clueless as to what is happening right in front of him. At that exact moment, a massive column of golden light surrounds Wei Dao, congratulating him on securing the elite turtle's elimination and jumping straight to level 6. Chuan Zihao turns red with pure rage upon recognizing the owner of the skeletons and yells furiously, accusing Wei Dao of blatantly stealing his target. Wei Dao just scratches his head with a cynical smile, playing innocent by claiming it was all just a minor pathing accident by his summons. The blonde guy fumes, saying that is a blatant lie, and raises his sword with all his might, determined to settle his unfinished biz with his rival once and for all. He channels all his golden power and delivers a devastating vertical slash straight at the young man. Showing absolutely no panic, Wei Dao extends his arm forward and commands his defense to jump into action immediately. A tight row of skeletal mages quickly lines up in front of him to absorb the full impact of the golden energy. The energy slash vaporizes the summons one by one in a massive burst of light. Even though the bone barrier was destroyed, the young man manages to stay safe behind his servant's makeshift shield. He wipes the sweat from his face, internally acknowledging that the opponent's attack was strong enough to seriously hurt him if the skeletons had not softened the blow. The other two students watch everything in horror, fearing Wei Dao is in mortal danger for angering such a powerful and well-equipped opponent. However, the boy completely shifts his stance and warns the arrogant rival that, since he decided to attack first, he will now have to deal with the consequences. With a firm command, he activates his new magic and summons an entire pack of skeletal horned boars straight at the enemy. He orders all the bone beasts to activate their destructive charges simultaneously against the blonde warrior. Chuan Zihao mocks the strategy, yelling that no matter how many bones his rival throws at him, they will all still just be weak trash. He lunges forward with the full force of his golden sword to try and shatter the first creature that approaches. To his absolute despair, the impact of the strike fails to break the elite monster right away, leaving the blonde guy entirely in shock at the creature's absurd endurance. The skeletal boar roars fiercely right in his face, unleashing an intimidating burst of purple energy. The beast hits the warrior with a crushing broadside strike, launching him violently through the air. The boy lands clumsily on his back against the dirt, totally losing his previously imposing posture. To make matters worse, the rest of the spectral army keeps advancing toward him in a threatening manner. Sitting in the grass and unable to defend himself in time, Chuan Zihao gulps, realizing he is about to be utterly defeated. The massive bone foot of one of the summons steps directly on his face in a humiliating way, silencing his desperate protests. The blonde warrior ends up passing out from exhaustion in the grass, completely knocked out and with his active items disabled. The other students watch the whole scene with their eyes wide in terror, unable to believe the overwhelming strength of that skeletal army. Wei Dao walks over calmly and asks for help carrying Chuan Zihao's unconscious form out of there, commenting that it would be trouble for everyone if the guy met his end in the dungeon. Still trembling in fear of the boy's strength, the two students immediately agree to help carry the blonde guy away. Wei Dao just watches with his arms crossed as the boys carry his rival off, satisfied with resolving that issue with extreme ease. Wei Dao looks around with a mischievous smile, celebrating the fact that he is alone again to finally lay the stone turtle to rest. He observes the colossal size of the creature, figuring a monster of that scale must hold excellent hidden treasures. However, before he can do anything, a massive blue, gooey blur drops suddenly from the sky right toward him. The young man jumps back, startled by the loud crash, trying to figure out what kind of bizarre creatures just showed up. The system immediately reveals it is a splitting slime, a dangerous level 5 monster that acts as the true boss of that dungeon. Wei Dao's jaw drops as he realizes he had the immense luck of running directly into the testing area's boss. Giving the boy no time to think, the giant slime starts shooting a barrage of highly corrosive green bubbles through the air. Seeing the danger of the corrosive spell approaching, the young man quickly channels his new phantom fire power into his hands. He launches the purple fire at the acidic bubbles, creating an explosive clash of magic in the middle of the battlefield. A few drops of the acid splash and melt the grass on the ground in a terrifying way all around him. The boy gulps, looking at the damage to the melted earth, commenting nervously that he would turn into a real skeleton if that liquid touched his skin. Meanwhile, the jelly monster seems to get even angrier and begins floating to prepare another massive wave of attacks. Without hesitation, Wei Dao summons dozens of skeletal mages at once and orders them to go all out against the gooey opponent. The mages raise their skeletal hands and fire a massive barrage of fireballs straight at the giant slime. A literal storm of red flames crashes against the enemy's acidic spheres in a spectacle of smoke and continuous explosions. Unfortunately, some of the corrosive bubbles manage to slip past the fire and begin melting his summons frames relentlessly. Wei Dao quickly realizes his mages are way too fragile to handle that kind of damage and that he urgently needs to change his strategy. He then decides to put his new bone borers on the front lines to act as actual heavy tanks. The dungeon boss lets out a weird sound of surprise, seeing those skeletal beasts rushing toward it so intimidatingly. The boars slam with full force against the slime's elastic body, generating a shockwave that makes the monster squirm all over. Wei Dao celebrates the success of the direct hit, confident that victory against the powerful boss is very close. However, the chubby slime recovers from the blow quickly and gets extremely furious about the damage it took. The monster's blue body begins glowing intensely, and cracks of energy appear all over its gelatinous surface. Right before the boy's eyes, the dungeon boss activates a special ability and splits into dozens of smaller, highly agile slimes. He recalls his school theory lessons, confirming that monsters of this species often multiply to confuse opponents after taking heavy hits. But instead of being scared by the multiplication, the boy flashes a smug smile, knowing he has the perfect advantage when dealing with numbers. He spreads his arms imposingly, stating in a challenging tone that when it comes to winning by sheer numbers, no one can top his mastery over the spectral army. The small jelly creatures spit a massive rain of corrosive bubbles together in an attempt to crush his summons. Wei Dao orders his horned boars to form a tight defensive line to absorb all the initial damage from that aerial strike. The bone animals stand their ground at the front, bravely taking the continuous impacts of the green acid without yielding a single inch. With the front line completely secure, the young man orders the row of skeletal mages in the back to begin a relentless fire bombardment against the little jellies. A literal rain of large flaming spheres falls from the sky right onto the group of exposed slimes. The massive explosions consume the small creatures one by one, evaporating the monsters in the scorching heat of the arena. As soon as the last piece of jelly vanishes, an immense glowing column of golden light surrounds Wei Dao, confirming that taking down the grand dungeon boss has leveled him up straight to level 7. The boy flashes a huge smile, noting the large amount of low-level treasures scattered across the floor, planning to sell everything to make some good cash as soon as he leaves. The system panel displays an incredible variety of swords, daggers, crowns, and valuable magic potions he just claimed as his spoils of war. Not wasting time on formalities, he grabs a large green cloth sack to store all his new riches. He begins scooping up the glowing treasure spheres very swiftly, laughing at his absurd luck in today's item harvest. Suddenly, the test time limit is reached, and a powerful blue teleportation light begins to wrap around the young man's body. Wei Dao feels a bit frustrated by the sudden interruption, feeling that the 8 hours of testing flew by way too fast for his liking. Holding tightly onto his stuffed treasure sack, he is pulled back through the dimensional portal with full force. In the blink of an eye, the other students also start reappearing in the academy's main hall, still a bit dizzy from the trip back. Wei Dao lands softly in his transport circle, murmuring in disappointment that he barely had time to really have fun in that dungeon. Right next to him, some students begin talking about their experiences inside, praising how incredible Shushiaking was for single-handedly defeating an entire pack of fierce level 5 wolves. Wei Dao overhears his classmates' whispers and internally admits that the girl's 6-winged angel class truly possesses highly respectable military power. However, his thoughts are cut short when a chubby and friendly boy comes running enthusiastically across the courtyard. It is Zhang Dahai, Wei Dao's best friend at school, who arrives joking around and challenging his buddy to guess what level he managed to reach after the 8-hour test. Wei Dao jokingly guesses he must have hit level 5, making Dahai laugh out loud and say the principal would need to build a solid gold statue of him if that were true. Dahai strikes an imposing pose and proudly reveals he managed to reach level 4, feeling it was the most genius achievement of his life so far. Wei Dao sincerely congratulates his buddy for securing his extra points on the final evaluations, while the chubby boy gestures excitedly and promises that from now on, he will protect his friend from any danger that pops up. Suddenly, their friendly chat is interrupted by Shushiaking, who comes walking toward the duo with a very unfriendly look on her face. Zhang Dahai immediately steps in front of Wei Dao, promising that his great chubby friend will handle the situation without any problems. However, the girl simply places a firm hand on the chubby boy's shoulder. With zero effort, she shoves him roughly to the side, telling him not to butt into their conversation. The poor guy loses his balance and falls face first onto the courtyard floor, letting out a groan. Seeing his best friend get thrown to the ground like that, Wei Dao completely loses his patience and draws his magic shovel wrapped in a purple aura. Shushiaking does not back down either and draws her shining sacred sword, challenging him directly to a clash. The two take an agile leap and exchange fast, precise strikes in the air, sparking with pure energy. They land softly and face each other intensely, ready for the next sequence of attacks. The swordswoman strikes again with a swift golden slash, mocking her opponent's sluggishness. But Wei Dao blocks the impact easily using just the handle of his shovel, ironically commenting that her strength is looking a bit weak today. Shocked that her attack was blocked so easily, the girl activates her visual perception spell to try and analyze the boy's current stats. Xiaoqing almost falls backward when she sees on the system screen that the boy already managed to reach level 7 in just a single day at the dungeon. She struggles internally, unable to understand how he managed to surpass her, since she fought non-stop and barely managed to hit level 6. Amidst her distraction, the sharp edge of Wei Dao's shovel stops just millimeters away from her neck. The young man shows a victorious smile and calmly asks why she didn't just try to dodge the final strike. Xiaoqing gulps and gives up the fight, admitting in extreme frustration that she ended up losing the bout to him once again. She puts her weapon away and turns her back angrily, warning that the real rematch between them will be decided during the Academy's Grand Unified Exam. Wei Dao just shakes his head, sighing, thinking it's a shame that such a pretty girl is so stubborn and entirely focused on competing. Nearby, the other students whisper in awe at the boy's feat of reaching level 7 in such a short training period. In the crowd, a mysterious man cracks a dark smirk, whispering that the master of the Chuyan family has lined up a very interesting target for him to hunt. Meanwhile, Zhang Dehai cries in a comical way, complaining that he got beaten up by the girl for nothing just because his friend didn't warn him earlier that he was already at such an absurd level. Wei Dao shrugs it off, laughing, and says it is not his fault, since the chubby guy was the one who wanted to play hero for no reason. He says goodbye to his buddy, letting him know he needs to handle some important errands in the city before nightfall. Carrying his heavy green sack full of treasures on his back, the young man finally reaches his planned destination. He walks through the gates of the city's trade market, planning to sell all the items he collected to make some good cash. Right at the entrance, a slick-looking merchant approaches him and asks if he's interested in doing some quick business. Meanwhile, a white luxury car cruises through the city streets in the late afternoon, heading toward the most upscale residential areas. Inside the vehicle, Xiaoqing's father notices his daughter's uncomfortable silence and asks why she seems so down. The girl looks out the window melancholically and asks her father if she is actually someone useless. The man looks through the rearview mirror, surprised by her venting, comforting her by saying she is by far the most talented student in the entire rookie class in the city. Even so, she remains depressed over being surpassed so humiliatingly by Wei Dao during the practical dungeon tests. Seeing his daughter's sadness, the father immediately offers to send someone to teach the hidden class boy a lesson to resolve the problem. However, she proudly refuses the help, swearing she will overcome and defeat her rival using only her own combat strength. Xiaoqing also takes the chance to warn her father that Wei Dao ended up severely injuring the heir to the influential Chuan family, and asks him to support the boy if things get ugly. The father laughs at his daughter's sudden concern for her rival and agrees, secretly deciding to send investigators to uncover Wei Dao's true background. Back on the market streets, the merchant insists on offering his products, but the young man clarifies that he actually only came to sell his own items. The slick vendor suggests he sell directly to him to save time, making Wei Dao suspect the man wants to hustle him on the price. The guy tries to hide his greed with a friendly smile, swearing up and down that his buying rates are always the fairest in the region. Wei Dao then drops his massive cloth sack on the ground with a heavy thud, challenging the man to evaluate the elite rewards honestly. As soon as the sack is opened, a colossal golden glow bursts from inside, completely blinding the merchant with so much wealth. The man fascinatingly examines the 25 rare items, including the highly sought-after elite slime sword, and asks shakily how much he would be willing to take for that entire high-tier batch. Striking a thoughtful pose, the shopkeeper offers 15,000 coins for all the gear at once. Wei Dao holds up 2 fingers and firmly counters, demanding at least 20,000 coins to close the deal. To the boy's surprise, the man accepts and shakes his hand instantly, leaving him a bit suspicious that he accepted way too fast. He stares off into space looking a bit foolish, wondering if he just fell for the slick merchant scam by not knowing the true value of the pieces. The vendor breaks the silence, asking if he really studies at the First Qingyi Academy, which Wei Dao confirms with a curious nod. The merchant then pulls out a small gray bag and explains that, since he will need to make many trips to the dungeon, a 10 cubic meter spatial storage bag would be perfect for his needs. Wei Dao immediately takes an interest in the magic item and asks the price of that storage bag. The man flashes a friendly smile and says the normal market price is 50,000 coins, but offers a generous discount of 30,000 to secure the friendship of such a promising youth. Wei Dao points his finger and says with conviction that this time he's going to cut the product's price in half, demanding to pay only 15,000 coins for the spatial bag. The merchant accepts on the spot and pulls out his panel to close the deal quickly, warning that he absolutely will not accept returns. The mobile payment system instantly confirms the successful transfer of 15,000 coins. Wei Dao is left totally confused, watching the man walk away celebrating, suspecting he just got scammed again out of pure naivety. Meanwhile, in a humble area of the city, an elderly man with long white hair rents a small room from a local young woman for just a month. He takes the property key with an extremely serious and mysterious expression. As soon as he is alone, the old man grumbles that he thinks it's an exaggeration for his family's boss to have him closely monitor just a recently awakened young student. A short time later, Wei Dao arrives at the same humble apartment complex and walks past a young female resident of the place. It is Wu Xinyu, a close neighbor who recognizes him immediately and greets him with great warmth and joy. He asks if something happened, and the young woman reveals she heard he awakened the undead summoner class and even took first place in the school's practical tests. Extremely thrilled with the great news, she gently pushes him against the wall with a radiant smile. Wu Xinyu leans in quite provocatively and whispers that now she can finally hand over a special gift she kept for him. She leans right next to his ear and softly asks the young man to close his eyes for a moment. Wei Dao turns completely red with embarrassment, remembering his neighbor has been a widow for quite some time and imagining 1,000 romantic things that could happen there. However, to his surprise, she just opens a small wooden box revealing a strange, glowing purple bone inside. He breathes a sigh of relief and focuses his attention on that mysterious object radiating a strong supernatural energy. The system reveals the item is called the Mysterious Bone Finger, possessing the incredible power to upgrade the quality of summons or even allow the user to temporarily transform into a spectral being. The young woman explains with a sad look that this relic belonged to her late husband, who was also a summoner, and she strongly suspects a passing is directly related to that eerie object. She places the box into the young man's hands and confesses that, in exchange for that powerful item, she would like him to investigate and bring justice for her late husband's fall. Wei Dao hesitates for a moment, well aware that the artifact's power is absurd, but worried about the terrible dangers he might get dragged into by accepting a mission of vengeance. He thinks it over in silence for a few moments, seriously weighing the pros and cons of that unusual proposal. Pushing his fears aside, the young man decides the risks are worth it and accepts the item, also motivated by all the respect he has always had for his neighbor. He holds the box firmly and promises her he will do his absolute best to unravel this whole mystery. Relieved and moved by the boy's response, the woman hugs him tightly with tears of pure gratitude in her eyes. Wei Dao smiles back warmly, trying to reassure her by saying he hasn't actually accomplished the feat yet, but he will try his hardest. He politely says goodbye and heads up the stairs to his apartment with the new treasure in hand. Upon entering his room and closing the wooden door, he finally finds himself alone and safe. He sits down comfortably and focuses all his attention on the small box, certain the mysterious bone finger has extraordinary properties. Curious to test the transformation power, he grips the bone tightly in his hand and begins channeling its purple energy into his own body. Wei Dao activates the spectral transformation command, feeling a sudden itch as dark energy takes over all his senses. Thick and intimidating purple smoke erupts through the room, entirely covering his physical form. When the mist finally clears, the young man reappears transformed into an imposing skeleton wearing his own clothes. While the system alerts him the mode drains continuous experience every minute, he starts moving his new skeletal arms in total shock, feeling that all his physical attributes have been absurdly amplified by this new combat form. With a scary skeletal grin, he decides to check if his transformation also brought any other bodily strengthening perks. Driven by curiosity, the boy pulls the front of his pants and looks inside, hoping to see if his enhancement extended to every part of his body. To his total disappointment and comic despair, he realizes that specific area was still just empty bones, declaring in tears that the enhancement failed miserably there. Completely traumatized by the situation of his new bony form, he grabs his head with both hands and desperately begs the system to deactivate the transformation immediately. A strong purple magic light surrounds him again, as he yells frantically to get his human body of flesh and bone back. As soon as his normal human form is restored, Wei Dao sighs in relief that he can control the spell freely, commenting that he was almost scared out of his mind by that weird experience. He checks his status bar and notices the transformation consumes an absurd amount of experience points, concluding the trick should only be used in moments of extreme necessity. Suddenly, a loud knocking sound on his front door interrupts in the middle of the night and puts him on high alert. He turns nervously toward the entrance, asking firmly who would be knocking on his door at this hour. The heavy knocks on the wood keep echoing through the apartment insistently and mysteriously. Wei Dao approaches the door slowly with his hand on the knob, tensely demanding the person outside identify themselves immediately. With a sinister creak, the apartment door begins to open slowly before him. Before Wei Dao, the dark silhouette of the enigmatic white-haired elderly man appears in the dark hallway, calling the boy by his name with an extremely calm and cold voice. Startled by that intimidating appearance in the dark, the young man doesn't think twice and throws a swift punch straight at the stranger's face. However, to Wei Dao's surprise, the quick punch is cleanly blocked by the old man's calloused hand with total ease. The man smiles calmly while holding the boy's fist, soothing him by explaining he is just the new next-door neighbor who just moved into the building. Wei Dao awkwardly apologizes for the misunderstanding, while the old man secretly praises the boy's fast reflexes, finding it completely understandable that young Xu Xiaoqing took an interest in someone with such agile reactions. The elderly man says goodbye with a calm wave and says he just came to welcome the new neighbor, leaving the young man completely clueless about the situation. Wei Dao closes the door intrigued, muttering in confusion about who this young lady was and what that weird neighbor actually wanted. The sun rises brightly over the city, marking the start of a new and important event at the academy. The students gather in huge numbers in the school's main courtyard, anxious for the official release of the dungeon test results. People chat excitedly in the corners, hoping to find out who actually secured the top spot in the overall rankings. Xu Xiaoqing approaches Wei Dao and indignantly asks how he managed to reach level 7, and the young man replies with all the calm in the world that he just defeated the area boss and some elite monsters. She widens her eyes in disbelief, claiming it is impossible for him to have defeated the boss alone, and that he must be lying to show off. At that moment, the principal takes the microphone on stage to begin the official announcement of the placements from the latest practical challenge. The large digital panel lights up, revealing to everyone that Wei Dao secured first place by a mile after eliminating the splitting slime boss and the elite monsters in the dungeon. Xu Xiaoqing holds her head in total shock, realizing his account was entirely true, as the boy's photo shines at the top of the ranking. The crowd of students starts buzzing with whispers, shocked that a summoner outshined the favorites, and spreading rumors that he even knocked out Chu and Zihao in there. The principal continues the announcement, revealing that Xu Xiaoqing secured second place, and that Chu and Zihao and Li Qiang followed closely in the next positions. The girl turns to her rival in frustration and admits he really is very strong, but warns that the grand competition between them is far from over. Wei Dao just flashes a friendly smile and casually replies that he will be ready to face her anytime. The principal wraps up the ceremony, reminding everyone there are only 29 days left until the Grand Unified Exam, and asks for total dedication in their daily training. Wei Dao starts walking back home through the crowd, fully focused on his own goals of rapid evolution. Knowing he has less than a month, he decides to head straight to the city's dungeon plaza to keep leveling up without wasting time. On the local quest board, several interesting offers to buy rare materials, such as goblin hearts and minor horns, are available. He reviews the options carefully, deciding he no longer wants to go back to the starter area and that he needs a bigger challenge. With a fearless look, the young man decides his next training destination will be the dangerous Orc Lair. He walks toward the corresponding portal, which is heavily guarded by armed city soldiers. Wei Dao steps to the center of the blue transport circle, confident the difficulty level of that location is perfect for his current power. The portal activates with a strong burst of energy, sending the boy directly into the new dungeon. Opening his eyes in the new location, he is met with a seemingly calm and quiet forest, finding it quite strange that this is supposed to be the Orc Lair. He looks around and spots only cute little animals like foxes and rabbits playing peacefully among the trees. However, aware that appearances are deceiving and that forest monsters tend to attack in large packs, he summons his skeletal mages to protect himself. Hidden in the treetops right above him, monsters resembling werewolves watch the boy with red, battle-hungry eyes. One of the creatures leaps fiercely toward the ground, letting out a deafening howl. Wei Dao turns quickly upon noticing the new surprise attack coming directly from the treetops. The creature curls into a fast energy sphere to strike him, prompting the young man to complain indignantly that every monster in this world seems to love sneak attacks. The monster charges, unleashing sharp claw swipes against the boy's defensive barrier. But before it can even touch Wei Dao, the creature is hit directly and blown backward by the fire magic of the skeletal mages. The creature falls defeated to the ground, while the system confirms the enemy's elimination and grants 25 valuable experience points. The boy keeps his guard high, knowing very well that monsters of that species never travel alone, and that the whole pack must be very close. Suddenly, dozens of other howling monsters leap from the shadows of the trees all at once, completely surrounding his group of summons. Wei Dao merely cracks a smirk, seeing that his theoretical deduction was absolutely correct. With a firm command, he orders his entire squad to prep their flaming spheres to pulverize the attackers once and for all. A flood of fire consumes the monsters, leaping through the air, blasting the creatures mercilessly in the middle of the forest. The system blinks non-stop with consecutive elimination notifications, yielding massive amounts of experience for the boy's rapid growth. In a matter of moments, the forest floor is covered with the defeated forms of the entire pack that tried to ambush him. With a satisfied smile and the shovel over his shoulder, Wei Dao celebrates that he can already start his usual profitable routine right at the dungeon entrance. He stands before the fallen monsters and begins digging the earth diligently, promising to give each of them a proper and complete resting place. 10 minutes pass and the makeshift graveyard begins releasing a large amount of glowing light spheres containing the system's extra rewards. The panel reveals he just obtained 5 farewell incenses, 8 jars of spectral oil, and the skill book for the visual perception spell. The young man examines the magic book with joy shining in his eyes, extremely excited to finally have his own perception skill. He thanks the heavens for the immense amount of money he saved by getting the spell for free directly through his burial method. He notes that all the experience stacked up in that hunting round is already almost enough to evolve the quality of his powerful combat skeletal boar. Determined to push even further, he opens the wooden box and pulls out the enigmatic purple bone finger he got from his neighbor. The young man places the artifact directly against the bone leg of his elite boar, preparing to initiate the special evolution process. A colossal sphere of purple energy erupts around the skeletal boar, triggering a truly overwhelming power transformation. When the purple light clears, the boar reappears much larger and more imposing, having been promoted to the prestigious Beast General rank by the system. Wei Dao is impressed by his mount's overwhelming strength, whose total basic attributes almost reach 2,000 points, plus having its ability upgraded to rank E. He pets the creature and decides to humorously name it Peppa. Right after, the young man lights a few more farewell incenses to gather quick continuous experience points and focus on evolving his skeletal mages. He brings the mysterious Bone Finger close to one of his common mages to force an immediate rank up. A strong storm of dark magic surrounds the bony creature, reshaping its entire physical structure. The skeleton transforms into an imposing skeletal mage of boss rank level 7, wearing red robes and mastering the powerful Great Fireball technique. Pleased with the dark result, Wei Dao throws his arm around the mage's shoulders and gives him the imposing name Ains. With his main fighters properly upgraded and much stronger than before, the boy flashes an excited smile. He takes an agile leap toward the inner area of the forest, determined to turn the orc lair upside down. Suddenly, a group of muscular minotaurs wielding giant axes appears, blocking his path with threatening roars. Wasting no time on introductions, the mage Ains rains down a massive barrage of burning flames over the beasts. One of the bull-headed creatures looks up confused, having no time to react to the surprise aerial strike. The colossal explosion hits the monster head-on, sending it violently into the air amidst the scorching fire. Wei Dao takes advantage of the opening and orders Peppa and the other skeletons to initiate an overwhelming ground charge to trample the rest of the minotaurs. However, a powerful purple-skinned minotaur wielding a massive hunting bow emerges from the trees, letting out a furious roar. Wei Dao just gives a wild smile and says he is eager to test the limits of his powers in a true battle of survival today. His mages keep unloading an endless storm of flames over the horned beasts, trying to get close. 3 hours of intense battle go by, with Wei Dao's army relentlessly advancing through the forest. As soon as the last creature falls, a system message alerts him that the conditions for his first-class evolution have been successfully met. His Eternal Endurance talent is upgraded, gaining the passive effect of transferring all damage received directly to one of his summons at random. Wei Dao gets incredibly hyped, noticing that, as long as he has enough summons on the field, he has become virtually immortal. On top of that, his exclusive shovel gains the new ability to open resting places and bring fallen forms back as loyal servants. The boy inspects the tool, finding it funny that his new skills are somewhat eerie and politically incorrect. Suddenly, a gigantic arrow cuts through the air at an absurd speed right toward his head. Wei Dao is caught off guard by the fast projectile, having no time to attempt any dodging maneuver. The violent impact strikes the young man right in the chest, sending him flying backward with destructive force. At the exact same time, a huge explosion hits his summons right behind him, revealing that the attack's force was colossal. He lands heavily against the cracked ground, with the energy arrow still lodged in his chest. However, instead of any battle damage, the injury begins to glow and the attack's energy fades into the air without causing any real harm to his body. He opens his eyes surprised, realizing his new passive effect just saved his life. The young man sits up impressed, confirming the brutal damage from that strike was entirely redirected to one of his monsters. He hears an enraged roar from Peppa right behind him, who ended up absorbing the projectile's impact without much trouble. The boy's bow mount roars in response, ready to keep fighting the hidden attacker. The purple-skinned minotaur that shot the arrow agilely leaps from the top of a tree, revealing his combat position. Wasting no time, Wei Dao uses his newly acquired visual perception spell to evaluate the mysterious opponent. The system reveals the enemy is Yason, the fearsome level 16 minotaur boss who acts as an earth marksman. The young man's jaw drops, finding out there are intelligent monsters in the dungeon that possess their own upgraded combat classes. The minotaur boss does not let up and fires another giant arrow wrapped in a powerful blue gust of wind. The projectile hits Wei Dao's shoulder with surgical precision, making him grunt from the violent impact. Yet, the boy just flashes a confident smile, seeing the attack's energy dissipate again, aware he would perish twice without his damage transfer. Realizing his devastating attack had zero effect on the human, the minotaur boss makes a hasty retreat through the forest. Wei Dao dusts off his shoulder dismissively and warns that, since the monster used up all his moves, it is now his turn to attack. The dungeon boss looks back startled, realizing the tables have turned entirely against him. Riding on Peppa and surrounded by his horde of skeletal mages, the young man launches a relentless hunt against the elite marksman. He yells that the monster won't be able to run away after daring to attack him, charging with full force through the dense forest. Desperate, the minotaur dives headfirst into a dark cave among the rocks to try and hide. Wei Dao and his mount charge right in after the creature without showing any hesitation. Entering the damp location, he notices the eerie darkness of that massive rocky cave. But just a few steps in, the young man bumps into a colossal skeletal creature floating in the dark and lets out a scream of pure fright. Looking around, Wei Dao is intrigued to see a huge amount of human remains scattered throughout that dark cave. The skeletons lying on the floor emit a mysterious purple aura, suggesting something very strange happened there in the past. Then the young man realizes too late that he walked right into a terrible trap. With a frightening crash, several giant rocks fall from the cave entrance, completely blocking his only escape route. To make things worse, several pairs of glowing red eyes start appearing from the deep darkness. Even surrounded, Wei Dao claps ironically, impressed that those monsters are smart enough to corner him. But he warns he won't be bested so easily and immediately summons his spectral army with Peppa on the front lines. The pack of furious minotaurs charges forward, raising their axes, while Wei Dao's forces prepare for the clash. The attacks collide violently in the middle of the corridor, sparking a series of fiery explosions that light up the entire cave. The enemies manage to shatter some of the more fragile skeletal mages with their brutal axe swings. Wei Dao just smiles at the charge, remembering their weapons will wear down while his spectral army is truly endless. With a ruthless command, he orders his mages to focus all their firepower to blast the invaders all at once. Massive fireballs start dropping from the top of the cave straight onto the miners' heads. The devastating explosions incinerate the creatures instantly, causing multiple experience gain notifications to blink on the boy's screen. An intense golden glow envelops the young man, indicating he just easily leveled up to level 12. Suddenly, a colossal red hoof stomps hard on the floor, radiating destructive fury. A giant red-skinned, white-haired minotaur appears furious, raging at the audacity of that human intruder. Instead of being scared by the intimidating creature, Wei Dao gives a greedy smile, realizing that elite monster will yield him a lot of experience. The powerful leader roars, demanding the boy's defeat, and charges forward alongside his surviving warriors. With a crushing blow, the horned giant shatters several bone soldiers that tried to block his path. The combat becomes chaotic in the cave, with the skeletal forces fighting bravely to hold back the monster's furious advance. The red minotaur leaps into the air with his huge axe strike straight toward Wei Dao. The young man stays calm and mockingly comments that this is the perfect time to prep his opponent's resting place. The creature slams the ground with full force right where the boy was, sending out a shockwave that cracks the rocky floor. But a skeletal hand emerges quickly from the dust to hold back the devastating impact of the strike. To the monster's utter surprise, Ains blocks the giant axe using only his own bone arms. Wei Dao appears right behind him with a smug smile, letting the opponent know this is the checkmate of the battle. Ains focuses a massive sphere of phantom fire right in front of the minor leader's startled face. With no chance to defend, the creature ends up swallowing the powerful flame magic directly into its mouth. The skeletal mage unleashes a close, range finishing attack, completely shattering the giant's upper body in a burst of purple fire. The boss's colossal frame is blown backward while it starts to completely disintegrate. An explosion of flaming energy spectacularly consumes the defeated monster. With this glorious elimination, Wei Dao levels up to level 13 and praises Ains's relentless work in combat. The boy then draws his small iron shovel and decides it is time to put his groundskeeper skills into action. Dozens of glowing spheres start popping out of the earth after the elite monster's burial is done. Wei Dao's eyes shine with joy, seeing he obtained incredible rewards like farewell incenses, offering rice, spectral oil, and even a battle axe. He packs everything into his spatial bag excitedly, celebrating that he's going to make an absolute fortune at the trade market. Suddenly, two purple energy spears are thrown at high speed toward him from the darkness. The young man just gives a smirk, commenting that he had been waiting for that sneak attack for a long time. He dodges agilely with a jump, letting the projectiles pass right by and stick into the cave floor. On top of a rocky platform, Yason watches in surprise, noticing his treacherous attack failed miserably. The dangerous elite marksman is in disbelief, seeing the human manage to dodge his shots so easily. Wei Dao points upward, laughing, asking if the opponent really thought his spectral army was depleted. The boy summons his massive skeletal horde around him once again, proving his summoning power remains intact. Yason bites his lips in pure frustration, unable to understand how a simple rookie summoner can control so many beasts at once. Wei Dao counters the taunt darkly, questioning how a mere dungeon monster can possess so much human intelligence. Not wanting to drag out the chat, the young man orders his army to charge with full force to capture the horned enemy. The minor boss yells for the boy not to celebrate too early, while the skeletal mages prep their fire magic. The dark-robed mages leap into the air, firing an onslaught of intense flames at the cornered opponent. A massive firestorm consumes the entire rocky platform where the opponent was trying to defend himself. Yason tries to jump back quickly to escape the assault from Wei Dao's skeletons. Running out of escape options, the Minotaur boss focuses all his power and fires his powerful earth arrow toward them. The gigantic projectile hits the ground with a deafening boom, breaking the stone and sending sharp rock shards all over the arena. Seeing the floor crack, Wei Dao realizes in shock that this area effect attack has a massive, destructive impact zone. Several pillars of yellowish energy burst from the ground, tearing up the cave's rocky floor in a devastating way. The relentless force of the area strike ends up destroying and shattering almost the entire front line of the boy's skeletal mages. Wei Dao is launched into the air by the shockwave but uses the momentum to order Peppa and Ains to finish the enemy once and for all. Peppa lets out a furious roar and launches a terrifying aerial charge straight at the Minotaur boss. Yason's eyes go wide in total panic, unable to believe the absurd speed of that bone beast coming right at him. The colossal mount hits the opponent head-on, who tries to hold back the giant tusks with his hands in a desperate bid for survival. The red-skinned Minotaur grinds his teeth in strain, realizing he won't be able to hold off that brutal force for much longer. Peppa's crushing strength ends up breaking the opponent's defense and triggering a massive burst of purple energy at the site. Thrown against the cave stone wall, the Minotaur boss lets out a sharp cry from the violent impact. Before he can recover, Ains emerges quickly from the shadows and preps a massive fireball right next to his head. The skeletal mage smashes the flaming magic directly against the opponent's face, giving no chance to react. A wave of destructive energy courses through Yason's entire body, which begins to crack under the unbearable heat of the spell. The massive final explosion completely consumes the Minotaur boss, leaving only smoke and rocky debris throughout the cave. Wei Dao looks at the ruined area with disdain, laughing and commenting on the pathetic state his opponent ended up in after the fight. Approaching Jason's fallen, scorched form, the young man is surprised the creature still possesses impressive vitality and hasn't fully perished. Although he wants to lay him to rest to get the rewards, he finds it highly suspicious for such an intelligent monster appear in the dungeon and decides to take him to the local authorities to investigate. Meanwhile, right outside the portal, the city guards chat worriedly, noticing that none of the students who entered the dungeon have returned yet. Suddenly, the huge blue magic circle in the courtyard starts glowing brightly, signaling a return transport. An immense pillar of bluish light bursts from the portal as a group of people finally starts to materialize before everyone. Wei Dao emerges imposingly from the light, flanked by his legion of skeletons and dragging the Mitre boss's form. The guards on duty are relieved to see someone finally manage to make it out of that mysterious test alive. They recognize the boy instantly and rush over to him to find out what happened inside. However, the officers are horrified to see dozens of other knocked out students being carried by the skeletons right behind him. Wei Dao calmly explains that a highly intelligent boss appeared in the orc dungeon, setting up traps to take down the students one by one. The guard is completely shocked by the revelation and says he will report the case immediately for superiors to send high-level hunters to eliminate the threat. The young man just gives a smirk and says all that extra work from the authorities won't be necessary. Without any ceremony, Wei Dao drops Jason's defeated form right at the feet of the jaw-dropped officers. The guard's eyes widen in disbelief as he confirms the boy single-handedly captured the fearsome level 16 boss. Changing the subject entirely, the boy casually asks where the nearest office is to exchange dungeon spoils for cash. Still trying to recover from the shock, the officer points in the right direction and tells him to head straight to the administrative building's reception. The boy thanks him for the info with a cheerful wave and walks toward the exchange office, leaving the guards to tend to the injured. Entering the brightly lit administrative room, Wei Dao politely greets the official receptionist there. He pulls out his treasure sack and dumps a massive pile of minor horns onto the desk, asking her to evaluate the collected items. The staff member almost falls backward in surprise seeing that glowing mountain of rare materials gathered by a single rookie. After inspecting one of the pieces, she confirms impressed that all the horns are of excellent quality and estimates the total trade value at 320,000 coins. Wei Dao breaks into a huge smile from ear to ear at the absurd amount and eagerly pulls out his phone to receive the immediate transfer. The receptionist device confirms the successful transaction, leaving the young man extremely satisfied with his gigantic profit for the day. With his pockets full of cash, the boy skips out of the admin building, eager to spend his fortune on new treasures at the city's trade market. A short time later, he walks through the gates of the bustling trade market, checking out the various shops in the commercial district. As he walks down the sidewalks, Wei Dao mentally hopes he doesn't have the bad luck of bumping into that scamming merchant from earlier. To his absolute despair, the vendor himself pops out of nowhere grinning from ear to ear, asking if the boy was looking for him. The boy jumps back startled by the sudden appearance and complains indignantly about how the guy always appears out of thin air to bother him. He tries to shoo the merchant away with his hands, rudely warning him he doesn't have any interesting merchandise to sell today. But the man insists slyly, gesturing excitedly and swearing that this time he is the one who brought incredible goods for the boy to check out. With no patience for falling into scams, Wei Dao turns his back and firmly states he will not look at, let alone buy, anything from him. The slick merchant dramatically laments, purposely mentioning he just got a hold of a rare skilled book and an evolution potion perfect for someone with the boy's profile. Wei Dao is intrigued seeing the merchant holding the two glowing rare treasures and decides to pay closer attention to the goods. He checks the item details and discovers it is an elite skeleton guard summoning book and a valuable evolution potion for spectral beings. Without hesitating, the young man runs back and grabs the magic book, eagerly asking how much the man wants for those two precious items. The vendor gives a highly sarcastic smile, teasingly reminding the boy he had just said he wouldn't buy anything from him. The young man gives a sheepish smile and says there's always room for negotiation, offering some glowing items from his own inventory to make a trade. He drops several high-level gears obtained in the dungeons onto the ground, including the powerful battle axe, daggers, and elite shields. The merchant feigns disdain while inspecting the batch and offers only 120,000 coins for everything, claiming the pieces aren't of good quality. Wei Dao gets extremely annoyed at the dishonest offer and yells that the axe alone is worth over 100,000 coins, demanding a much fairer value. The man is surprised and lets out a disappointed sigh, realizing the boy learned how to evaluate real market prices way too quickly. He then proposes a direct trade, suggesting giving the magic book and the evolution potion in exchange for all the elite gear the boy has. Satisfied with the fair deal, Wei Dao accepts the immediate trade proposal and stores his valuable new items in the spatial bag. As they part ways, the merchant places a friendly hand on the young man's shoulder, advising him not to show all his trump cards to others so easily. Wei Dao just stares at him suspiciously, grumbling internally that the man is a true prodigy of commercial hustling. The vendor waves goodbye cheerfully and tells the boy to come back anytime he has more valuable merchandise to trade. While walking back under the sunset, the young man examines his new potion and decides to look for an isolated, safe spot to test the effects on his summons. However, hidden behind a street lamp, a mysterious man in a hood and cap watches Wei Dao's every move, celebrating that the target is finally alone. With a wicked smile, the pursuer whispers that the boy made a fatal mistake by offending extremely powerful people from the influential Qian family. The rogue draws a sharp dagger that begins to glow with intense, cutting blue energy. In extremely fast and silent move, he lunges like lightning straight toward Wei Dao's unprotected back. But the boy's sharp senses trigger instantly, making him look back startled as he notices the lethal threat coming his way. The criminal leaps to deliver a critical strike, announcing that the Qian family paid a very high price for the young summoner's head. A few skeletons quickly try to step in and protect their master, but are shattered in the blink of an eye by the elite rogue's blade. With eyes blazing in fury, the operative yells insanely for Wei Dao to be sent straight into the abyss. The strike hits the boy squarely in the alley, opening a large gash that scatters dark energy into the air. The criminal lands calmly on his back and puts his dagger away, grumbling that sending a professional operative for such a simple mission was a complete waste of time. However, to his absolute despair, a hand firmly grips his shoulder and Wei Dao's voice echoes right next to his ear. The operative turns around completely terrified, stammering, unable to understand how the boy can still be in one piece without a single real scratch after taking a critical hit. Wei Dao wears a dark look and, wielding his newly acquired epic red dagger, warns he has absolutely no intention of giving explanations. With an extremely fast and precise horizontal slash, the young man lands a devastating blow to the opponent's chest. The rogue collapses on his back in the alley, gripping his severe injury while murmuring in total shock that this is impossible. The criminal's eyes slowly lose their spark as he stares at the starry sky, unable to accept his humiliating defeat. The system panel pops up congratulating Wei Dao for eliminating the level 39 elite operative and granting 30,000 experience points. The young man thoughtfully examines his red blade, laming a bit that the first target taken down by that epic weapon had to be a human being. Night falls over a dense forest under the full moon, where the boy decides to lay his opponent to rest privately. As soon as the groundskeeper work is done, several purple spheres emerge from the soil, revealing the extra spoils granted by the system. Wei Dao checks the rewards and is quite surprised to note that putting real people to rest generates completely new and peculiar drops. He holds a strange glowing green banknote and wonders curiously how on earth he is supposed to use that underworld currency. Suddenly, dozens of wandering spirits appear around a new system screen that announces the official activation of the incredible underworld shop. A gigantic glowing green floating wall appears before him, displaying an endless array of scrolls, weapons, and divine potions available for purchase. The boy's jaw drops as he admires the absurd amount of legendary items that are now within his reach. He starts checking the prices and almost faints, seeing that the most powerful spells cost hundreds of billions of underworld coins. The sacred gear also has astronomical prices that would make any regular warrior completely lose hope. Wei Dao looks at his single 10-coin note with a devastated grimace, complaining indignantly about what he could possibly buy with such a measly amount. Without many viable options at the moment, the young man decides to close the floating shop screen and focus on saving up money little by little. He resolves to channel his energy into practically upgrading his forces and begins the incantation to test his new skeleton guard. A massive, glowing purple summoning magic circle appears beneath his feet, lighting up the entire dark clearing. A level 13 elite skeleton guard appears before him wielding a giant heavy protection shield. The boy evaluates the new defensive summon quite satisfied, finding the creature's stance and resistance perfect for his front line. He pulls out his newly acquired evolution potion and pours the magic liquid directly over the skeletal soldier's skull. A colossal explosion of black and purple lightning consumes the soldier, transforming him into an imposing beast general decked out in purple gear and a powerful golden shield. Wei Dao's jaw drops, checking his new summon stats, seeing it as almost 4,000 constitution points, acting as a truly indestructible shield. The boy gives the huge skeleton warrior the nickname Little Chiang and watches him let out a terrifying roar to celebrate the new name. Right after, the young man turns to the mage Ains with a smirk, eager to apply the second evolution potion on him. Without hesitating, he pours the thick liquid over the skull of his main elite mage. Ains roars imposingly as his power is amplified, securing the beast general rank in a new, destructive colossal flame spell. Wei Dao is extremely pleased with his mage's upgraded status, predicting he will surely be the most valuable warrior in any future group battle. With his main combat monsters properly strengthened, the young man stretches happily and decides it is time to head home and rest. Watching everything from afar in the woods, the mysterious elderly man looks very surprised to see the boy manage to defeat a rogue from the dangerous Chuan family all on his own. Meanwhile, the sun rises over the gigantic and luxurious mansion of the influential Shu family in Qingyang City. Inside the residence's office, the mysterious elder reports to Shu Xiaoqing's father that he personally witnessed Wei Dao defeat the dangerous elite operative. The old man explains the youth even made sure to lay the criminal's form to rest and made strange gestures for his summons, though he was too far away to see the details. The girl's father is confused, not understanding why the boy would bury defeated opponents, and his subordinate confesses he doesn't know the reason either. The elder adds that the boy definitely does not need any sort of protection and that the young Miss Xu Xiaoqing was just worrying over nothing. The family patriarch recalls his daughter lost matches to Wei Dao for 3 years straight and that she wants to defeat him fairly, not allowing anyone to hurt him before that. The man orders the elder to keep watching and protecting the hidden class youth, certain the Chuan family won't dare do anything once he gets into an elite university. The next day, a bright blue portal opens in the middle of the dense forest, marking Wei Dao's return to the dangerous orc lair. The boy walks through the woods remembering that last time he got distracted by that intelligent boss and still needs to explore the rest of the region. With renewed spirits, the young man sprints deep into the forest, determined to scar every mysterious corner of that hostile territory today. Further ahead, he arrives at a massive sacrifice altar where dozens of minotaurs are gathered howling around an imposing figure. Wei Dao hides behind a thick tree to closely observe that weird gathering of horned monsters. Using his visual perception skill, he discovers the creature at the top of the altar as the dangerous Minotaur priest Haya, a level 20 leader. The young man finally realizes the previous boss tried to lure him away from that area specifically to stop the sacred ceremony from being interrupted. Suddenly, the priest opens his glowing blue eyes and immediately senses the presence of an intruder hiding nearby. The leader points his wooden staff and furiously orders his warriors to capture the human intruder once and for all. A horde of muscular axe-wielding miners charges in a noisy sprint toward the boy. Showing no signs of panic, Wei Dao takes a step forward and orders Little Chiang to advance to hold off the charging impact. The skeleton general moves forward imposingly and activates his special skill, raising a colossal barrier of glowing purple shields from the ground. The horde of monsters crashes hard against the defensive wall, sending out intense sparks without moving the bone barrier a single inch. With the defensive line holding completely firm, the boy extends his arm with authority and orders Ains to start the counterattack bombardment. The skeletal mages unload a relentless rain of fire on the attackers, blasting the pack of horned monsters in the scorching heat. The priest watches everything in total shock, unable to accept that his faithful followers were obliterated so easily. Furious over the defeat of his forces, the Minotaur leader rises from his throne and begins channeling immense dark energy around him. He starts reciting a solemn prayer out loud so the Earth Mother grants him supreme power to destroy the boy. But before he can finish the prayer, Peppa comes rushing in like a trail of purple light right at his feet under Wei Dao's sarcastic orders. The horned leader's eyes widen in fear seeing the giant skeletal mount charging at him at top speed. With no time to defend, the priest is hit squarely by the boar's violent impact and lets out a groan of strain as he loses his balance. The devastating force of the trampling sends the level 20 monster flying violently through the clearing's air. Desperate and unable to react while falling, the creature yells begging the bone beast to stay away. Peppa executes a crushing leap and lands heavily on the priest, breaking the floor and ending the combat in a huge cloud of dust. The system blinks immediately confirming the Minotaur priest's elimination and granting 20,000 valuable experience points. A brilliant and massive column of golden light wraps around Wei Dao, announcing his evolution bumped him straight to level 14. He walks over to the priest's fallen form and notes with surprise that a purple skill book dropped directly onto the floor even before the burial. The panel reveals the reward is the advanced meditation technique, a method capable of gradually enhancing the user's entire physical constitution. The young man holds the book with eyes shining with emotion, realizing he just found a true personal cultivation treasure. Wasting no time, the boy extends his arms and triggers the system command to learn the new skill instantly. A continuous stream of golden energy flows directly into his forehead as the system confirms his complete mastery of the technique. Determined to test the new feature, Wei Dao sits cross-legged in the grass and begins the deep meditation process. An overwhelming yellowish aura surrounds his body, boosting his stats and making him level up rapidly to level 16 continuously. The young man flashes a radiant smile of pure joy, realizing meditating is incredibly more effective than hunting, and that he can train without leaving home before the unified exam. With his task complete and much stronger, the boy walks toward the bluish exit portal to finally return to the city. Several days pass quickly in the bustling city, bringing an air of great anticipation for all the young students. In his room, Wei Dao stays focused on his intensive meditation training, gathering an absurd amount of golden energy around him. He opens his intensely glowing golden eyes, reminding himself with total determination the big day of the unified exam has finally arrived. The boy leaps up and clenches his fists full of confidence, knowing this is the perfect chance to show his true potential to the world. The scene shifts to the imposing arena of the first Kinjing Academy, where a crowd is already starting to fill the stadium's massive stands. The students walk in chatting excitedly, impressed by the venue's structure and curious about what monsters they'll face in the practical test. In the center of the stage, the announcer takes the mic to kick off the event and lets everyone present know this year's evaluation monsters have already been selected. He details that candidates will face goblins, minotaurs, and slimes ranging from levels 10 to 20, going from the most basic rank up to the area boss category. Wei Dao listens closely in the crowd as the announcer explains that each student must choose the number of opponents based on their own strength to be evaluated. The host enthusiastically calls the first participant up to the combat stage, a young man named Lu Ming. The red-haired student runs nimbly toward the center of the testing arena, ready to begin his challenge. Lu Ming takes a confident stance and declares out loud that he wishes to face 10 normal level 15 Minotaurs and 1 Grand Minotaur boss. A massive blue energy circle activates on the arena floor, instantly materializing the requested group of horned monsters for the candidate. The red-haired youth activates his gear and immediately summons his glowing crimson combat armor. The boy is completely decked out in the sparkling red armor, pushing his physical attributes to the max. The students in the stands notice his weapon and start whispering in surprise, seeing the boy as wielding the famous elite slime sword. The classmates comment in awe that Lu Ming spent heavily, paying over 50,000 coins for that sword to guarantee an easy win. Hearing the outrageous price his rival paid, Wei Dao turns red with pure rage, realizing that scamming market merchant blatantly hustled him in the earlier valuation. Ignoring the crowd's whispers, Lu Ming charges forward and activates his electric dash strike against the opponents. He moves in a zigzag pattern extremely fast, slashing the Minotaurs one by one with precise strikes from his glowing sword. The red-haired warrior lands smoothly back on the arena floor following his rapid sequence of physical attacks. With an imposing battle cry, he unleashes a strong burst of energy that instantly obliterates all the remaining monsters around him. The announcer congratulates Lu Ming for his excellent score of 161 points and announces contender will be Xu Xiaoqing. The girl walks imposingly toward the center of the battlefield and draws her beautiful, glowing angel-winged sword. With a serious and determined look, she defies traditional rules by demanding to face 5 level 20 goblin bosses all at once. The entire audience is left jaw-dropped and speechless at the girl's audacity, wondering if the rare angel classes truly pack that much of a military advantage. Wei Dao gives a smirk watching the scene, noticing his rival is extremely motivated and set on surpassing him no matter what. A massive column of greenish energy glows in the center of the stadium, bringing the 5 terrible goblin bosses onto the battlefield. The green monsters roar deafeningly and charge at the girl wielding sharp daggers. Showing no fear, Xu Xiaoqing spreads her majestic wings of golden light and rises into the air. With an imposing battle cry, she raises her sacred sword, focusing an absurd amount of luminous power. The girl unleashes a devastating vertical slash, sending a gigantic arc of sacred light straight at the arena floor. The golden energy beam cuts through the air and cracks the stadium floor in half in a truly spectacular fashion. The colossal impact obliterates the 5 level 20 bosses all at once, eliminating the threat in less than a second. The other students widen their eyes in complete shock, unable to believe she was able to defeat all those elite monsters with a single strike. The announcer yells enthusiastically into the microphone, confirming the girl just secured the temporary lead in the ranking with 300 points earned. The crowd in the stands goes wild over the heroic feat, cheering the immense power of the Academy's prodigy. Walking back past Wei Dao, Xu Xiaoqing provocatively warns that his turn to be defeated has come, and the boy just sighs, commenting on her intense motivation. In the principal's booth, leaders from other schools praise Principal Wang for the excellent performance of his institution students this year. Principal Wang flashes a proud and confident smile, stating he is absolutely certain the next candidate from his school will deliver an even better result. The rival asks curiously how many max-level bosses the hidden class boy will be able to face in today's test. The man rubs his chin thoughtfully and bets calmly that, if the boy trained properly, 10 level 20 bosses shouldn't be any problem for him. The other principal laughs mockingly and accuses him of exaggerating way too much, noting the historical record for the unified exam has always been just 5 simultaneous bosses. Unshaken by the taunt, Principal Wang simply smirks and suggests they watch with their own eyes to see what the youth is capable of. The announcer calls the next candidate's name over the sound system and invites Wei Dao to step into the arena's main testing courtyard. The young man walks with his hands in his pockets and a calm, focused look toward the central combat circle. Before getting into position, he unexpectedly approaches Xu Xiaoqing and asks if she could do him a small personal business favor. The surrounding students whisper indignantly about the boy's slacker attitude, accusing him of being the most shameless candidate in the whole school for asking favors at a time like this. The girl crosses her arms and replies she will only talk if he manages to beat her score on the test, and the young man confidently accepts the challenge. With an excited smile, Wei Dao takes a quick leap and runs to the center of the battlefield to start his test. Wei Dao lands softly in the combat arena under the watchful eyes of the entire stadium crowd. With a challenging smile and his finger pointing upward, he announces he wishes to face 100 level 20 slime bosses all at once. The event's official announcer turns completely pale with a look of pure panic, finding that request utterly absurd. The students in the stands go into a frenzy over the declaration, commenting the boy has lost his mind and that he would pass out from exhaustion even if the monsters stood perfectly still. The announcer asks tensely if the boy wouldn't like to reconsider the challenge, but Wei Dao replies with total conviction that his decision is final. Walking calmly around the arena, the boy even mutters that he intended to ask for 200 monsters, but realized the stadium's physical space would be too small to fit them all. Up in the principal's booth, the rival leaders tease Principal Wang about the boy's arrogance, while the man watches sweating bullets and begs them to just accept the boy's challenge already. Left with few options, the announcer reluctantly accepts the request and advises the young man to be as careful as possible. A colossal blue magic circle activates on the arena floor, prepping the mass materialization of the elite creatures. 100 giant-sized, red-eyed slimes appear all at once, squeezing together noisily and covering almost the entire battlefield. Showing no hesitation, Wei Dao activates his spectral summoning power with purple flames glowing in his hands. His massive legion of skeletal mages quickly reappears from the shadows, ready to receive their new combat orders. Right after, Pep also materializes, letting out a powerful roar that makes the entire arena structure shake. The students in the stands are completely shocked, realizing the boy has 3 beast general rank monsters under his silent control. The blue slime horde attacks in a coordinated strike, firing a massive rain of corrosive green acid drops through the air. Wei Dao orders his front line to block the venomous splash, prompting little Qiang to raise his massive barrier of glowing purple shields. With the defense completely secure, the young man commands his backline of mages to begin an intense fire bombardment to cover the advance. The flood of large fireballs crashes into the gelatinous creatures, turning the arena into a literal inferno of consecutive explosions. Exploiting the opening from the destruction, the boy points at the battlefield and orders Peppa Ains and little Qiang to finish off the survivors at once. His 3 main summons charge together to wipe out the rest of the enemy army. Peppa runs through, smashing everything in its path, trampling and destroying several slime bosses with extreme ease. Ains grabs one of the creatures and unloads a blast of phantom fire at point-blank range to incinerate it completely. Another strong burst of energy consumes another group of opponents, displaying the overwhelming power of that combat team. Meanwhile, little Qiang uses his huge shield to slash and crush the remaining jelly monsters without any mercy. The spectators watch the demonstration with wide eyes, finding it brutal how the level 20 bosses are pummeled without being able to fight back. Xu Xiaoqing gulps and watches the total sweep, completely speechless, finally understanding what her rival meant about true power. With his arms wide open, Wei Dao celebrates theatrically and says that battle is the true display of the art of explosions. A colossal fiery blast consumes the rest of the arena, ending the practical test in a truly spectacular way. The system panel officially confirms the elimination of the 100 elite creatures, declaring the test complete. The principals in the main booth watch everything with stunned faces, exclaiming they just witnessed history being written. The announcer nervously declares into the mic that Wei Dao just achieved the perfect score of 900 points on the overall evaluation. The crowd of students in the stands goes wild and starts celebrating that unbelievable historical result enthusiastically. In the middle of the bleachers, the arrogant Chuan Zihao grinds his teeth in pure rage, seeing his rival shine at the top of the ranking. The blonde boy fumes that this is absolutely impossible and questions how his arch-enemy managed to get so ridiculously strong. After the test concludes, Xu Xiaoqing congratulates the winner on his perfect score and asks what the favor he needed earlier was. Wei Dao explains with a serious look of concern that he fears retaliation from the dangerous Chuan family against his relatives once he leaves the city. The girl listens closely, curiously asking what exactly he would like her to do to solve the problem. The young man puts his hands together in a prayer motion and asks for the Su family to send some protectors to watch over his parents, promising to repay the kindness in the future. Xu Xiaoqing lets out a giggle covering her mouth and replies very warmly that it's a simple request and she is happy to help without issues. Relieved by the positive answer, Wei Dao gives the girl a tight, grateful hug, leaving her completely red with embarrassment from the sudden gesture. Spotting the affectionate scene from afar, Chuan Zihao completely loses his temper and yells furiously that he will put an end to his rival's life once and for all. A few days go by and night falls quietly over the boy's humble residential neighborhood. Wei Dao is shown sitting in his room in front of the computer, focused on accessing the academic news portal. The monitor shows the login screen for the Tianfu Province's unified exam grading system. Suddenly, a loud ringing and knocking sound at the front door echoes through the apartment, catching the young man's attention. He gets up from his chair and walks calmly down the bedroom hallway, calling out that he's coming to answer it. The boy reaches out to turn the wooden doorknob, wondering curiously who would be knocking at this time of night. Opening the metal door, he is completely surprised to come face to face with his parents and his little sister gathered in the hallway. The blue-haired little girl strikes an angry pose with her hands on her hips, complaining comically that her brother took an eternity to open the door. Wei Dao flashes a huge smile and happily celebrates the surprise visit, commenting he didn't expect his family to get to the city so fast. His relatives explain joyfully that they left the exact moment they got the boy's call, while he invites them inside the apartment right away. The little sister runs toward Wei Dao's computer, giggling mischievously as she plans to find out what her brother was up to on the internet. But she widens her eyes and freezes in total surprise, staring at the information displayed on the monitor screen. The monitor displays the official grade panel for the Tianfu Unified exam, confirming the youth honorably secured first place overall in the entire ranking. The little girl lets out a hysterical scream of joy, announcing to their parents that her brother really cemented himself as the grand national champion of the test. Wei Dao casually pats her on the head, laughing and commenting that all the fuss is unnecessary for what was just his normal performance. The little sister pouts stubbornly, calling him a show-off and swearing that in the future she will definitely beat his scores when her turn comes. The parents smile proudly at their son's success, and his mother asks enthusiastically which university he plans to send his official application to. The boy reveals to his parents that he decided to enroll in the prestigious Modu Professional University to continue his studies and training. He adds that he will be leaving in a few days and asks them to rest easy in the city, because the Shu family will send elite guards to provide home protection for them. His father places a hand on his shoulder with pride and affection, advising his son to take very good care of himself during his journey in the new city. The family says their goodbyes, sharing a warm and emotional group hug in the middle of the living room. The scene shifts to the gigantic and imposing campus of the Modu Professional University under the clear morning sky. Carrying his travel backpack, the young man takes his first steps into the elite institution's main courtyard to present himself. He approaches the reception committee and hands over his official summons letter with total calm. The senior students in charge of welcoming the freshmen tell the boy to wait on the side with complete disinterest and laziness. However, the senior's posture does a total 180 when a gorgeous young woman with long black hair named Nanjai approaches carrying a suitcase. The guys at the reception desk become totally infatuated and jaw-dropped, marveling that this year's freshman girls are true goddesses. They frantically rush to compete over who gets to carry the young woman's bag, completely ignoring Wei Dao on the sidewalk as he watches the scene in shock. The boy gets a huge comic sweat drop on his head, complaining indignantly about the absurd difference in treatment he just received simply for being a guy. The pink-haired senior immediately offers to lead the beautiful freshman on a full tour of the campus facilities. Then, a chubby and friendly boy comes running clumsily across the courtyard, carrying a huge canvas sack on his back and begging them to wait for him. The plump freshman runs up and shoves his admission paper right in the pink-haired senior's face, happily introducing himself as Pei Chuan. The senior inspects the paper grudgingly and makes a joke about the chubby boy's name, thinking he's unlucky, while the rookie just scratches his head, laughing awkwardly. The senior finally agrees to lead the group and grumpily orders all the new students to follow him toward the dormitories. Wei Dao walks right behind, observing Pei Chuan in silence, noticing that despite looking ordinary and funny, his magical aura is extremely powerful. Curious to clear up his theoretical doubts, the blue-haired youth decides to discreetly activate his visual perception spell. The system immediately reveals that the chubby boy is named Pei Chuan and possesses the ultra-rare hidden class of Blood Sacrifice Priest. The boy is quite impressed to discover the new classmate also holds a highly coveted hidden class. Pei Chuan notices him looking and strikes up a friendly conversation, and Wei Dao introduces himself, revealing he has the Undead Summoner class. The chubby boy thinks that's awesome and praises the power to summon armies, making Wei Dao laugh and reply humbly that his class also very promising. As they move forward, the senior points to the buildings ahead and explains that the dormitories are divided by districts from 1 to 4, with District 1 being exclusive to the strongest prodigies. Pei Chuan praises the guide, thinking he must be very strong, and the pink-haired guy puffs his chest out proudly, confirming he was assigned to District 4 in his very first year. The group finally arrives at the outdoor reception desk, where the senior respectfully greets a white, bearded elder named Elder Kun. The guy in pink turns and orders the 3 new students to pull out and hand over their official admission letters for registration. Pei Chuan, Wei Dao, and Nanji's documents are lined up on the receptionist's wooden counter. Upon reviewing Nanji's file, Elder Kun pushes up his glasses in surprise and asks if the little girl is indeed the famous prodigy from Daijing. After she confirms it, the man places a shining golden key on the counter corresponding to Luxury Villa number 4 in the 1st district. The girl politely thanks him for the key while the pink-haired senior watches everything, fascinated by the new student's beauty and prestige. Wei Dao steps up next and receives his key very naturally, while the elder congratulates him with a cheerful nod. The status panel reveals Pei Chuan was sent to room 85 in District 2, while Wei Dao himself will be housed in room 66 of the same district. The pink-haired senior almost chokes in shock, realizing the 2 rookie boys also managed to get the coveted elite spots in District 2. The plump freshman celebrates happily with his key in hand and starts looking around curiously. Pei Chuan nudges Wei Dao and blushes, letting him know he just spotted a spectacular goddess walking right behind them. The blue-haired young man turns around and is surprised to come face to face with Shishaki, who recognizes him and calls his name immediately. The chubby guy tries to butt in, rushing to introduce himself with a flirtatious smile, but the girl completely ignores him and focuses all her attention on her former rival. Shishaki walks over and directly asks which room he was assigned to, and the boy replies simply that he got room 66 in District 2. Pei Chuan watches the whole thing with a comical look of despair, seeing his friend get approached so intimately by the school's goddess with zero effort. The girl flashes a beautiful smile and celebrates the divine coincidence of getting room 81 in the exact same district as him, leaving the chubby guy crying with envy in a mental storm. However, their conversation is interrupted when an elegant woman in long pants approaches and gets Wei Dao's attention seriously. Wei Dao turns around surprised and politely asks who the elegant woman that approached him in the courtyard is. The pink-haired woman in a light suit confidently introduces herself as Wang Xiaoman, the new instructor of the summoning department. She steps close provocatively and tilts the boy's chin up with her finger, commenting she heard about a genius young summoner who cemented himself as the province's grand champion. She gives Wei Dao's nose a light tap and warns him she has high expectations for his performance, leaving him completely red and awkward. The instructor winks mischievously and makes a teasing comment that leaves the young summoner even more flustered and confused in the middle of the courtyard. With a friendly pat on his back, the woman welcomes him to the university and reminds him not to miss the official orientation ceremony tomorrow. Wang Xiaoman waves goodbye cheerfully and walks away swaying, leaving the boy still a bit dizzy from so much enthusiasm. The boy sighs in relief, commenting on the teacher's exaggerated hype, but Xu Xiaoqing pops up right behind him pouting, accusing him of enjoying that attention a little too much. The girl turns her back irritated and grumbles that men are all the same, leaving Wei Dao scratching his head with absolutely no idea where that sudden jealousy came from. Suddenly, the scene changes drastically to a colossal explosion of dark, purple energy occurring in the middle of a deserted forest. A staff member with glasses passing by a wooden bridge spots the purple smoke and freezes in panic upon noticing the destructive phenomenon. The man sweats coldly, realizing that spatial rift of dark energy signals the sudden appearance of an unknown ruin. Terrified by the imminent danger, he sprints off as fast as he can to report the urgent discovery to the elite institution's principal. The bespectacled assistant remains in complete shock facing the massive scale of that purple energy anomaly in the valley. Without wasting a single precious second, he runs as fast as he can through the building's hallways to sound the danger alarm. Meanwhile, the night goes quietly in the university's main building, with only one of the office windows still lit. Inside, the robust director of the Physical Combat Department, Wang Goei, sips hot tea, commenting with satisfaction on the excellent potential of the new freshman. But his bespectacled assistant bursts into the room yelling, announcing the appearance of a new ruin, causing the director to spit out all his tea in shock. The man slams his hands on the desk in alarm and demands to know immediately where the dimensional rift just manifested. The staff member explains the anomaly appeared 50 kilometers west and that its scale seems to be beginner level without posing a catastrophic threat. Relieved by the detailed report, the director calms down and begins planning a training strategy to take advantage of the golden opportunity. He decides that the next day he will take a group of freshmen on an exploration expedition and let the new students observe the process from the outside. The assistant reminds him that tomorrow is the rookies' welcome event day, and the director orders them to move the ceremony location closer to the rift to facilitate the practical lesson. The staff member accepts the order and gives a respectful bow before leaving the office to organize the event preparations. The next day, hundreds of newly arrived students gather in a massive open valley surrounded by mountains to kick off the opening ceremony. Wang Xiaoman appears smiling and greeting her freshman classes, while Wei Dao stands with his arms crossed watching the commotion. The youth politely returns the greeting as he sees his new instructor approach with her usual flashy look. The woman leans in very close to his face and asks if he didn't sleep well since he looks so tired, making the boy awkward and stuttering to explain himself. On the setup stage, the imposing director Wang Goei takes the microphone and officially kicks off the welcome ceremony for the university's freshmen. He announces that all new students joining the institution will receive 100 initial academic points that can be exchanged for various treasures kept in the school vault. The students in the crowd get very hyped by the news, whispering that Modu University's vault must hide extremely powerful and rare items. The speaker flashes an excited smile and lets them know they are very lucky, because today's ceremony will be the most thrilling and spectacular in the institution's entire history. He reveals that a new beginner ruin appeared nearby the previous night, and the rookies will get the exclusive chance to watch the exploration expedition from the outside. The crowd of freshmen cheers happily at the news, feeling very lucky to experience a high-level practical lesson right on their first day. Wei Dao asks Wang Xiaoman if the freshmen will get the chance to enter the rift, but the instructor immediately says no and warns that even a basic ruin is dangerous enough to take them out multiple times. Intrigued by the explanations, the blue-haired youth asks what the real differences are between traditional ruins, dungeons, and secret realms. The teacher explains that secret realms are actually real, fully functional alternate worlds. She adds that to other intelligent races in the universe, planet Earth itself is also considered a mysterious secret realm. The woman details that dungeons are just fragmented projections of these real worlds, containing mindless monsters that act only on instinct and respawn after falling. The boy scratches his head confused and asks where the original rifts go if dungeons are just smaller fragments. Wang Xiaoman adds that these spatial fragments, left floating aimlessly in the infinite vacuum of the universe, are what people call ruins. She reveals that inside these ruins, explorers often find excellent rare rewards, like potions, magic scrolls, and legendary gear. But the instructor warns that the greatest treasure hidden there is the central magic core that supports the physical structure of that entire floating dimension. The woman concludes by explaining that, once an explorer manages to collect that energy core, the whole ruined dimension begins to disintegrate and disappears forever. Wei Dao listens to everything fascinated and asks how they access the inside of the rift. At the exact moment, a terrifying purple mist starts rising around them. A continuous stream of golden energy flows directly into his forehead as the system confirms his complete mastery of the technique. The boy's eyes widen and he points tensely at the teacher's back, asking if the situation she described is exactly like the giant purple fog that just appeared behind her. The instructor turns around startled, letting out a gasp of surprise as she faces the massive wall of dark mist advancing. Panic spreads immediately when the purple mist starts covering the entire valley extremely quickly and violently. Wang Xiaoman screams, desperately ordering all students to run immediately, realizing the ruins portal expanded toward them out of control. One of the red-haired students tries to run frantically, but panics realizing it's already too late to outrun the mist. Several freshmen start getting violently sucked into the purple dimensional portal, screaming desperately for help amidst the gale. Director Wang Goe watches the scene in horror, realizing instantly that the attraction range of a basic ruin should never have expanded that much. The wooden structures of the welcome stage start breaking apart under the storm's impact, leading the man to suspect someone is sabotaging the event from the shadows. Wei Dao tries to hold on with all his might, but ends up caught and dragged by the rift's purple energy tentacles. Instructor Wang Xiaoman runs toward him, screaming his name, trying to grab him before it's too late. However, in a flash, the young summoner is completely sucked inside the dimensional portal, leaving only purple dust in the air. With a dull thud, Wei Dao's foot lands heavily in the hot sand of a vast, arid desert. The young man gets up startled and looks around, indignantly confirming he was indeed teleported inside the mysterious ruin. He notes the deafening silence of that desert landscape and tensely wonders where his other classmates could be. The boy starts trekking through the soft sand, lamenting that the group was randomly scattered across different regions of the map again. Suddenly, a colossal centipede with an orange shell bursts out from under the sand dunes right behind the youth, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. The giant insect locks its glowing red eyes directly on the back of Wei Dao's neck, who turns around startled by the crashing noise. The monster strikes mercilessly with its sharp legs, but the boy manages to dodge by millimeters while wondering what that bizarre creature is. The beast hits the ground with full force, opening a massive crater in the desert sand. Wasting no time, the young summoner activates his visual perception spell to evaluate the opponent's combat stats. The system reveals the creature is an armor-crushing centipede, a level 30 elite monster that lets out furious roars. Wei Dao complains in disappointment about his bad luck, thinking it is a terrible misfortune to run straight into an elite bloodthirsty insect of that level right from the start. The terrible horned monster charges at high speed toward the youth, who agilely sprints to dodge the consecutive leg strikes. He extends his hands covered in purple flames and immediately activates his spectral summoning spell at max power. The boy orders his skeletal army to surround and tear the elite creature apart once and for all. The skeleton generals step forward imposingly and form an impenetrable circle of purple shields around the giant insect. With the monster cornered, the skeletal mages in the back start focusing their phantom fire magic with determination. The mages fire a continuous barrage of fireballs, bombarding the centipede's shell with destructive explosions. The insect's tough shell begins to crack and break under the extreme heat and violent impacts of the magic. Wei Dao cracks a smug smile seeing the success of his tactic, commenting that winning through an overwhelming amount of soldiers always works perfectly. He orders his forces to capitalize on the opponent's weakness to close the net and finish the fight quickly. The line of skeletal mages channels their energy and fires a powerful finishing torrent of fire. The grand explosion consumes the elite insect completely, creating a massive black smoke screen in the desert sky. The system panel confirms the successful elimination of the elite opponent and grants 15,000 experience points to the boy. The armor-crushing centipede scorched frame slowly dissolves into the hot, cracked desert sand. Besides the experience, a legendary level 30 elite sword appears floating in the air as a system drop reward. Wei Dao draws his iron shovel with a mischievous smile, excited to see what other treasures he can dig up from that high-level opponent. He starts digging a hole in the sand dune and soon a strong golden light bursts from inside the newly made resting place. A beautiful tree bearing golden apples magically sprouts from the sandy soil, glowing spectacularly under the sun. One of the golden fruits cracks open brilliantly, releasing the prizes hidden inside. 3 underworld banknotes emerge from the glowing tree, to the boy's absolute joy and surprise. Wei Dao's eyes widen and he shows a look of pure happiness, noticing he managed to get more underworld cash for free. The boy celebrates cheerfully in his chibi style, stating with sparkling eyes that this expedition was totally worth it. He safely stores his new notes and the elite sword into his spatial storage bag. Wei Dao reorganizes his spectral forces and orders the army to continue exploring the desert territory without wasting time. In another dry part of the desert, 3 freshmen trek exhaustedly under the unbearable heat of the sun. Chuan Zihao appears panting and sweating coldly in the middle of the sandy path, suffering from the fatigue of walking in the high temperatures. The red-haired youth and the other classmate complain dejectedly about walking for hours without running into any other human survivors. Suddenly, a loud noise of fast, gigantic footsteps echoes from behind the dunes, breaking the silence of the sandy clearing. The blonde swordsman turns around startled and tensely asks who could be approaching the group so violently. A colossal elite armor-crushing centipede bursts through the dune, launching a furious pursuit straight at the freshman. The giant insect opens its terrifying mouth full of sharp fangs and battle-worn teeth, letting out a high-pitched, hungry squeal. The freshmen scream in terror upon facing that terrible, ravenous monster blocking their path. With no chance to defend themselves right away, the group goes into total panic and runs desperately to save their lives from the elite beast. The 2 freshmen run desperately trying to save their lives, silently agreeing that horned creature is way too scary. Wei Dao spots the duo running his way and immediately deduces they are new students from the Magic University. The blue-haired youth gives a relieved smile, celebrating that he finally found familiar faces in the middle of that desert. The red-haired boy spots Wei Dao and screams frantically for him to turn around and run as fast as possible to escape the monster. The colossal centipede continues its relentless chase right behind the freshman, kicking up a lot of dust. However, instead of fleeing, the young summoner's eyes gleam like stars with pure greed upon noticing the presence of another valuable elite opponent. Wei Dao runs in the opposite direction straight at the creature, summoning his horde and celebrating that his precious underworld money has just arrived. The duo of freshmen runs right past him and is left completely speechless, wondering if the boy lost his mind for charging straight into danger. With an imposing command, he orders his bone soldiers to launch the attack without any hesitation. The skeletal mages fire a devastating barrage of fireballs, bombarding and blasting the elite centipede's shell. The two boys stop running and watch everything jaw dropped, commenting in awe that summoning classes are way too overpowered. The freshman in the vest mutters in disappointment that he's also a summoner, making his red-haired buddy joke that this absurd strength actually just belongs to Wei Dao. After defeating and burying the elite insect, 3 new glowing spheres containing underworld banknotes pop out of the sand for the boy. The youth collects the prizes, commenting that, although he got a few more valuable notes, the amount is still far from enough for his shopping list. Suddenly, a colossal crash and continuous tremors start shaking the ground across the entire desert region. Wei Dao turns quickly on high alert, trying to figure out the source of that terrifying noise making the sand tremble. Further away, screams of terror echo over the dunes as other unlucky freshmen are ambushed by gigantic insects. To everyone's absolute despair, a massive horde made up of dozens of giant elite centipedes comes rushing over the dunes. Wei Dao watches the horizon and is completely shocked, realizing they just ran into a literal tide of bloodthirsty insects. The freshmen in the distance scream in total despair, certain that endless monster army will spell their doom. Aware of the imminent danger of that mass encirclement, the youth slaps his hands on the ground and activates a large summoning magic circle. He summons Peppa and takes an agile leap to mount the bone beast, ordering it to run at top speed to escape the tide. The red-haired boy's jaw drops as he spots the beast's general rank mount and the destructive power it radiates. Wei Dao goes flying past the group on Peppa, and the freshman duo decides to match the youth's fast pace to try and save themselves. The two sprint with all their might, chasing the mount's dust trail, begging desperately for the boy not to leave them behind. The horde of wild centipedes roars furiously right behind the group, closing the gap with every passing second. Unfortunately, some of the slower students begin to get caught and are brutally attacked by the elite insect's sharp fangs. Wei Dao looks back tensely, noticing the monsters are still on his tail with frightening speed. The boy complains indignantly about being chased so stubbornly by that massive insect horde. Even though he's not carrying anything interesting, he starts deducing the creatures are ignoring the other students just to focus on him, strongly suspecting there's an intelligent controller monster guiding the strikes. Further ahead, another group of students watches Peppa's fast dash across the desert in total surprise. A green-haired freshman holding onto his Gale Wolf admits embarrassingly that the bone mount's speed makes his own pet look like a joke. Breezing right past them, Wei Dao yells an urgent warning that a terrible infestation of giant insects is coming right behind him. The youths on the path are confused by the sudden heads-up, not understanding the imminent danger. However, they go into instant panic when they look at the horizon and come face to face with the gigantic tide of centipedes rushing their way. The green-haired boy named Lu Yu quickly climbs onto his Gale Wolf and orders the beast to run to save him. His teammates beg desperately for him to take them along, reminding him they won't be able to survive on foot without the wolf's help. Ignoring his friends' pleas, Lu Yu slaps his wolves back to gain even more escape speed. The wolf leaps into a sprint across the dunes, leaving the other students behind in the dust. The green-haired boy looks back coldly, selfishly claiming that carrying more people would get them all taken out and that they have to fend for themselves. The abandoned students are in deep shock at their own teammates' cowardly betrayal. Fueled by the anger of being left behind, the red-haired archer draws his bowstring and swears he'll drag the traitor down with him. He fires a flaming arrow with surgical precision straight at the fleeing rider's back. The fire projectile cuts through the desert air at an impressive speed. The arrow hits Lu Yu squarely in the back, making him let out a cry of strain as he loses control of his mount. The traitorous youth falls violently into the sand, rolling clumsily while his wolf keeps running without him. He writhes on the sandy ground with the arrow lodged in his body, cursing the situation furiously. Showing no mercy, the centipede tide reaches the abandoned students and launches an aggressive assault against the defenseless group. Lu Yu looks up in absolute terror, finding himself completely surrounded by 3 giant centipedes ready to devour him. Meanwhile, the terrifying tide of giant centipedes keeps advancing fiercely through the arid desert. Far from there, already into the night, a heavily guarded military base marks the official entrance to that dangerous dimensional ruin. Inside a brightly lit tent, the top leaders and academy principals gather around a large wooden table. The official investigator takes the floor with a serious expression, announcing they finally discovered the true cause of that bizarre incident. The bespectacled principal asks to hear the full report without further delay, worried about the gravity of the situation. The man with a goatee reveals straightforwardly that the whole anomaly was not an accident, but rather a meticulously planned plot. The revelation leaves the principal completely shocked, unable to believe a criminal conspiracy is active. The investigator then asks if everyone there remembers the terrible attack that shook the region exactly 1 month ago. He then explains that creatures from foreign races invaded dungeons in several cities simultaneously. The invaders ambushed the students right in the middle of their practical tests, causing a true tragedy with hundreds of fallen victims. With a dark look, the man states he has irrefutable proof that today's attack was orchestrated by the exact same terror group. The principal stands up furiously at the news, demanding to know the identity of those responsible for these atrocities immediately. The investigator replies without hesitation that the culprits behind everything are the members of the fearsome cult of countless races. Upon hearing that cursed name, one of the leaders slams his hand hard on the wooden table out of pure indignation. The man in the suit clenches his fist in anger, cursing the actions of those wretched operatives. Wasting no time, he orders all known cult bases to be dismantled and for any suspect to be dealt with immediately. The other officers give a firm bow, confirming the relentless hunt against the cult will begin right away. Back inside the ruin, Pepper runs at high speed, kicking up a lot of dust over the desert dunes. Wei Dao follows his skeletal mount until finally reaching a mysterious forest area. The youth looks around surprised by the sudden change in scenery in the middle of so much dryness. He walks among the leafy trees, trying to understand how a beautiful oasis could pop up right there. Passing by some thorny branches, the boy spots a small, glowing green creature crawling along. Curious, the boy slowly steps closer to observe the bizarre glowing insect. Suddenly, the creature lets out a sharp warning screech, startling the young man who wonders what that is. Wei Dao activates his visual perception spell to unravel the mysteries of that strange specimen. The system screen reveals the monster is just a harmless level 2 toxic larva. The small insect opens its mouth full of sharp teeth, glowing with an intimidating greenish hue. The larva leaps fiercely at the boy's face, making him yell in comical panic from the surprise attack. With no patience for games, Wei Dao lands a solid hit using his iron shovel to crush the monster against the trunk. A system notification pops up instantly, congratulating him on the elimination and granting only 1 experience point. The boy makes a hilarious dumbfounded face, complaining indignantly about that completely insignificant experience reward. However, he soon remembers his groundskeeper trick and decides to bury the larva to see what items he can get. 10 minutes after the burial, a small, mysterious apple tree bearing a golden fruit sprouts from the ground. The golden apple bursts into pure energy, revealing he just earned a valuable gold underworld coin. Wei Dao gets dollar signs in his eyes out of pure greed, realizing he'll be filthy rich if he manages to bury a bunch of those larvae. With a mischievous and determined smile, he snaps his fingers and summons his loyal army of skeletons. The youth points at the branches full of glowing insects and orders his servants begin hunting right away. In another part of the forest, a pink-haired freshman cries desperately on the ground, surrounded by battle damage and destruction as she begs for help. A mysterious swordsman with long hair and a black cloak appears before her, coldly demanding to know where the talented prisoners are kept. The girl cries uncontrollably in fear, begging for her life and swearing she knows absolutely nothing. Showing absolutely no mercy, the operative delivers a finishing strike with his blade against the defenseless girl. The rogue wipes his weapon clean dismissively, mocking the pathetic weakness of the academy's new freshman. He walks thoughtfully through the desert, remembering that the new captured targets are bearers of exceptional talents. With a wicked smile, the villain plans to take out the 2 strongest prodigies to secure his absolute leadership position within the cult. Suddenly, his walk is cut short when he spots the strange golden fruit tree left by Wei Dao. The cloaked warrior walks over curiously, figuring his powers will skyrocket once he harvests that rare treasure. Noticing the mound of soft dirt right below the tree, he cracks a greedy smile, certain there is something valuable buried there. Without hesitation, the man starts digging the dirt frantically to grab his supposed magical reward. However, what he ends up pulling from the bottom of the hole is just the crushed, gooey remains of that low-level toxic larva. With his hands covered in that gross green slime, the villain lets out an infuriated yell of pure disgust, wondering which idiot buried that trash there. The long-haired man steps back, wiping the grime off his hands, complaining heavily about the whole disgusting situation. Suddenly, a fast streak of skeletons wrapped in purple smoke flies right past him. He turns around startled, unable to figure out what just dashed by so quickly in the middle of the forest. Walking a bit further, the warrior comes face to face with a massive row of small, newly planted golden apple trees. The operative is totally surprised, wondering why there are so many glowing spoils scattered across the ground. But the surprise is short-lived, as 3 skeletal mages sprout from the earth suddenly and threateningly. The bone summons raise their skeletal hands, channeling large fireballs for an attack. The blonde draws his sword in annoyance, complaining about the bad manners of monsters that start attacking without any warning. As the battle begins, the massive orchard of golden resting places continues, covering the entire expanse of that clearing. Far from there, Wei Dao stuffs his spatial bag with dozens of new glowing underworld notes that just sprouted. The youth celebrates radiantly while dancing happily with his skeletons, parting over the fact that he has hoarded almost 50,000 coins. However, the festive mood is interrupted when a system alert blinks, warning that several of his summons were eliminated at once. Seeing that 10 of his mages were destroyed, the boy makes a startled face and sends Peppa and his shield warrior to investigate. He sprints through the forest alongside his main combat forces, worried about the mysterious invader. Arriving at the clash site, Wei Dao finds only purple smoke and the ashes of his former servants. He scratches his head in confusion, not understanding why everything got so quiet again all of a sudden. At that moment, a terrible burst of red energy cuts through the air toward his last skeletal mage. The destructive attack shatters the remaining summon into 1,000 pieces, right before the young man's eyes. Wei Dao steps back tensely, prepping his own magic as he demands the cowardly attacker show themselves immediately. The long-haired operative emerges from the shadows wielding a flaming sword, commenting that the boy's undead summoner class seems quite familiar. With a wicked smile and eyes glowing with pure malice, the villain recognizes the boy as the province's grand champion and decides he will be an excellent spoil of war. He fakes sympathy as he approaches Wei Dao's forces, falsely introducing himself as a regular student named Y. The cloaked warrior apologizes with a laugh, lying that he ended up hitting the summons by mere accident. Wei Dao pretends to buy the lame excuse, keeping his hand on his chin as he evaluates the situation suspiciously. Yi suggests the two form a temporary team to look for a way out of that dangerous ruin together. The youth coldly accepts the proposal and turns his back to the Wei, warning he won't waste time looking after anyone weak. Capitalizing on the boy's distraction, the villain flashes a diabolical smile and prepares to land a fatal blow from behind. But Wei Dao feels the air freeze, instantly realizing an overwhelming intent to strike appeared right behind him. He turns calmly, looking out of the corner of his eye, asking his supposed partner what exactly he plans to do with that sword. Giving no time for answers, the villain leaps, unleashing his most powerful strike wrapped in a massive blade of fire. The slash hits the young summoner squarely in the chest, making the rogue laugh out loud and celebrate that his seat of power in the cult is secured. Even wounded and on his knees, Wei Dao maintains absolute calm and asks if the enemy is part of the cult faction, while his passive transfers all the damage to one of his skeletons in the backline. He shows a look of pure insanity and confirms his loyalty, mocking the boy's despair. The blue-haired youth deduces that the trap that dragged all the freshmen into that maze was indeed part of his plans. The villain agrees proudly, praising his sect leader's genius intellect as he unloads his firepower. However, his smile instantly vanishes and he starts sweating coldly as he notices the boy is still standing without a single real scratch. Wei Dao stands up imposingly next to Peppa and his main forces, calling the opponent insignificant trash and laughing at his failed attempt. The cult operative tries to keep his composure and takes a new combat stance, gathering his red flames around his sword. He unleashes a gigantic horizontal slash, swearing that fiery attack will mark the young man's true end. But little Qiang steps in front and blocks the devastating attack using his massive golden shield. The skeleton general holds the defense firm, absorbing the full impact of the strike without backing up a single inch. The enemy watches that relentless defense with wide eyes, unable to believe his fire technique failed miserably against a simple shield. At the exact same moment, Peppa lets out a furious roar that makes the ground shake and spreads purple smoke all over the area. The massive mount charges forward, breaking the forest floor with its sharp tusk, straight at the rogue. The villain panics and tries to raise his blade to hold back the bone beast's destructive charge. The brutal clash generates a massive wind shockwave and rock shards across the battlefield. The crushing force of the trampling sends the cloaked warrior flying violently backward. Yi slides clumsily across the sand, trying to regain his balance, recognizing the opponent's absurd strength. Wei Dao stays safe in the back and extends his arm with authority, ordering Ains to take out the enemy for good. The imposing skeletal mage floats in the air and conjures a colossal phantom fireball, ready to incinerate the operative once and for all. He tries to protect himself at all costs and conjures a red energy barrier around his body to hold off the attack falling from the sky. But the effort is in vain, as the colossal flame sphere shatters his defense with a deafening explosion. The system panel pops up right away, congratulating the youth for eliminating his elite opponent and granting 1 million experience points. Wei Dao looks at the massive black smokescreen quite satisfied, laughing and commenting on how his destructive power is growing at a colossal rate. Thanks to the huge amount of points earned, the boy is enveloped by a strong golden glow that confirms his level up to level 20. A system screen opens offering the first-class advancement quest for the undead summoner, whose requirements have already been fully met. He confirms the evolution in a strong purple aura, updates his combat stats, also upgrading his magic shovel's properties. The boy's jaw drops, checking his new attributes, and seeing that they were all doubled in one go. He flashes a smug smile, noticing that all his main summons also advanced in class along with him. Curious to test the new perks of his upgrade, Wei Dao opens the floating personal talent screen to check the modifications. He discovers he gained the incredible ability to detonate fallen forms to cause area, affect explosions, finding the technique excellent for his future battles. Determined to see the practical effect of his new destructive magic, the boy snaps his fingers toward the enemy's remains. A monumental flaming explosion consumes the desert floor, leaving the boy very pleased with the test result. He inspects his new tool and discovers he can unlock a special cultivation mode by making purchases in the underworld market. The youth puts his shovel over his shoulder and walks toward his rival's newly made resting place, laughing and commenting that his sacrifice yielded a great harvest. 15 minutes pass quickly in the mysterious oasis forest after the intense battle. A beautiful and glowing golden apple tree sprouts from the mound of dirt where the operative's form was laid to rest. The golden fruit cracks open brilliantly, releasing an intense stream of yellowish energy. To the boy's total surprise, the system drop reveals an ultra-rare rank S skill book for summoning a powerful void swordsman. Wei Dao holds the glowing blue book excitedly and commands the system to absorb the spell instantly. A strong spiritual light surrounds the youth, confirming he successfully learned his new rank S summoning technique. He extends his arms over the new, massive bluish magic circle to bring his warrior into the fray. A colossal beam of energy erupts from the ground as his new bone servant's silhouette begins to take shape. An imposing skeleton wearing beautiful blue armor and wielding a giant sword materializes, leaving the boy fascinated by stats worthy of a grand area boss. The boy gives his new rank S warrior a friendly pat on the shoulder, affectionately nicknaming him Handsome for his flawless look. Suddenly, a massive greenish blur dashes across the clearing at high speed right in front of them. Wei Dao turns quickly on high alert, trying to figure out what kind of mysterious creature just showed up there. He jumps out from the trees and runs to try and intercept the invading monster that keeps moving fast through the shadows. A colossal venomous spider with sharp fangs leaps from the foliage, letting out a sharp screech and spewing purple acid. The giant insect gathers a terrible blast of venom in its mouth, prepping a lethal charge. The boy's jaw drops, seeing the absurd ease which the creature swallowed one of his fire spells whole. Without hesitating, he orders his skeleton generals to step forward immediately to hold back the opponent's strike. The undead pack rushes toward the spider but ends up stepping right into a glowing green magic circle on the ground. A terrible barrier of green lightning bursts from the earth, shattering almost all his summons amidst the loud crashes. Wei Dao spots the imminent danger, seeing the green shockwave rushing straight at him. However, his loyal swordsman Handsome quickly steps in front to protect him from any impact. The blue armored skeleton general raises his hand, creating a massive blue energy shield to hold off the acidic assault. The venom rays crash heavily against the defense, generating a series of intense sparks without managing to break the blue barrier. The bone warrior roars imposingly, keeping his guard firm and impenetrable. He manages to completely repel the enemy's attack, proving his immense usefulness as the youth's new protector. Taking advantage of the backlane's safety, Wei Dao mounts Peppa and orders a direct charge at top speed against the spider. His entire legion of undead generals launches a coordinated and noisy sprint to crush the opponent. He extends his arms and fires several purple flame spheres while Peppa destroys the ground along the way. The flaming explosions hit the giant elite monster's face, making it back away confused by the extreme heat. The boy focuses his visual perception skill to analyze the danger ahead of him. The system reveals the creature is a level 36 venomous spider that acts as an area boss, justifying all that impressive military power. The green-legged monster doesn't back down and fires another massive toxic laser beam straight at them. Wei Dao yells a tense command for Peppa to immediately dodge that direct and highly lethal attack. The skeletal mount executes an agile sideways leap, escaping by millimeters from the green beam that cracks the rocky floor. The young man points determinedly and furiously orders Ains to use all his destructive magic to send the giant monster back to the sky once and for all. Ains raises his skeletal arms, focusing an absurd amount of intense flames in his hands for the definitive strike. Giving no chance to escape, the skeletal mage fires the two gigantic fireballs directly at the giant spider. A monumental explosion consumes the center of the battlefield, lighting up the forest skies with a burning glow. Far from there, 3 new students find themselves completely surrounded by the fearsome tide of giant centipedes, screaming desperately that their end has come. The blonde freshman furiously wields his staff and fires a blast of fire at one of the monsters trying to get close, but the attack has no practical effect, and the elite insect emerges intact from the flames, letting out a hungry screech. The blonde mage yells desperately for his red-haired buddy named Zhang Hai to use his fire dragon attack already. Zhang Hai replies furiously that he has exhausted all his magical energy and has no strength left to keep fighting the pack. The red-haired youth tries to push another monster away with his axe, asking in terror if they are all truly going to perish there in the desert. Suddenly, a colossal crash from the clearing catches their attention, and the blue-clad warrior comments in awe that explosion is 1,000 times stronger than any magic they have. The blue-haired boy orders the group to run immediately in that direction, certain that the presence of a strong warrior, there is the group's only chance of survival. Back at the clearing, Wei Dao watches the black smoke screen alongside his main combat forces. The boy flashes a victorious smile, certain that no monster could possibly make it out of a flaming bombardment of that level. To his absolute surprise, a creature with the upper half of a woman and the lower body of a colossal spider emerges unharmed from the ashes. The youth activates his visual perception spell, startled, noting the new creature radiates a very different aura of power than before. The system panel confirms the opponent evolved into a level 40 venomous spider queen, boasting the fearsome beast general rank. Wei Dao turns completely pale and sweats coldly, realizing his opponent just underwent a class evolution right in the middle of combat. Sensing the imminent danger of that colossal creature, his skeletal mount digs its hooves into the ground to break its advance. Without a second thought, the boy turns around while riding Peppa and sprints away, yelling that it's time to get out of there as fast as possible. Meanwhile, the three freshmen come running out of the forest toward the open field. The blue-clad warrior spots the young summoner's undead forces positioned further ahead and runs to try to save himself. But the red-haired boy panics, mistaking the summons for hostile monsters blocking the path, and draws his sword to fight. The blonde grabs his buddy in a rush, pointing upward upon noticing there is a human student leading that skeletal army. The group watches in awe as Wei Dao goes flying past on Peppa with his whole legion of servants right behind him. The boy breezes right past the freshmen and yells harshly for them to get out of the way immediately if they don't want to get run over. The blonde student yells back desperately, warning that a massive horde of extremely aggressive monsters is right on their tail. Wei Dao just breezes by without paying them any mind, telling the guy to shut up and just focus on running to save his life. The warrior in blue mutters to his buddy in confusion that someone is holding off the horde for them, questioning how that could be a bad thing. At that moment, a new massive burst of fire consumes the rest of the vegetation right behind the fleeing group. The youth stop running for a second and watch jaw dropped at the flawless defensive line Wei Dao's army has formed. The blonde freshman shockingly admits that the black-cloaked boy is a truly absurd and powerful elite warrior. Peppa keeps running swiftly across the desert dunes, dodging the remaining centipedes trying to attack her. Wei Dao spots the last elite insect blocking his path and coldly orders his mount to crush it without mercy. The bone beast charges at max speed and leaps straight at the unprotected opponent on the sand. With a crushing impact, Peppa tramples and destroys the giant insect in one go, creating a massive dust cloud. The three students watch that display of brute strength completely speechless, admitting that boy is an unbeatable genius. Still riding his bone beast, Wei Dao hastily complains that he doesn't have the free time to bury the forms and grab the system spoils. At that moment, the three freshmen run toward him yelling and calling the boy boss. In a very exaggerated way, the blonde youth praises the summoner's impressive power and enthusiastically asks if the group can tag along on his exploration. Wei Dao scratches the back of his neck looking a bit bored, dismissively replying that he's not very fond of having useless people following him around. Suddenly, a high-pitched, deafening roar echoes from all across the ruin's greenish sky. The blue-haired youth feels a chill and tensely warns that the terrible threat managed to catch up to them again. The level 40 Spider Queen appears smashing through the forest trees with a terrifying scream of fury. The freshmen turn totally pale and speechless as they face the monumental size of that new opponent. Wei Dao angrily yells at the boys to stop staring like idiots and start running if they want to stay alive. The youths go into a total panic and sprint away desperately, crying out for their mothers amidst the despair of the chase. With his backline in danger, the youth snaps his fingers agilely to activate a new round of protective summons. Riding on Peppa, he commands his new bone soldiers forward to hold off the Spider Queen's momentum. An entire legion of skeletal mages quickly reappears from the shadows, running to form a barrier. The skeletal soldiers fire their fire spells simultaneously at the giant spider, which roars furiously as it takes the hits from the bombardment. The three freshmen keep running desperately through the forest, screaming and begging the black-cloaked boy to save their lives. Even annoyed by the group's freeloading, Wei Dao extends his arm wrapped in purple smoke and activates his magic to conjure more helpers. He summons several smaller skeletal horned boars to serve as mounts for the students, letting them know they'll move much faster that way. The boys shed comical tears of pure gratitude and relief upon receiving that life-saving help from their new boss. Riding on Peppa, Wei Dao sprints off and announces he'll take the lead, making it clear that from there on out everyone needs to look out for themselves. 3 hours pass quickly and dawn breaks over the ruin, finding the young summoner resting while leaning against a giant tree. He sighs in relief that he finally managed to shake off the danger and the annoying group of freshmen from earlier. The boy rubs his empty stomach, commenting that all that night running left him starving. He opens his spatial bag and pulls out a small pack of simple cookies to have his breakfast. The boy tears the plastic wrapper open in a hurry, grumbling indignantly about when this test in this cursed ruin will finally end. Wei Dao brings the first crunchy cookie to his mouth, enjoying the simple meal in the middle of the quiet forest. Suddenly, a ripe, juicy peach drops from the treetops straight onto his head, leaving him confused by the sudden drop. The boy looks up, scratching his head, trying to figure out where that mysterious peach came from. Focusing his sight on the foliage, a system screen reveals the presence of a small, red mohawked monkey at level 35 from the dangerous mutant demon monkey race. The youth complains in a startled tone, realizing he had the bad luck of crossing paths with another high-level creature right in the middle of his rest. The cute little monkey tosses another ripe peach straight at the boy with great agility. Wei Dao gets startled as he's hit on the shoulder by the fruit, letting out a muffled groan from the sudden impact. The mutant creature points at the boy with a very clever look, suggesting a friendly trade of goods. The demon monkey opens its mouth and points a tiny finger inside, making comical noises to show it also wants to eat. The young summoner understands the gesture and asks if the little guy is actually proposing to trade the fruits for his pack of cookies. Seeing no issue with the negotiation, Wei Dao tosses the pack of cookies up with a friendly nod. The mutant monkey catches the pack in mid-air with ease, flashing a huge smile of satisfaction. The creature starts hopping with joy on the tree branch, letting out happy little squeaks. Wasting no time, the little monkey stuffs several cookies into its mouth all at once. It chews with its eyes closed and cheeks flushed, savoring the delicious food. The monkey lets out a cute roar imitating a strong combat beast, quite hyped about the snack. Wei Dao watches the scene, finding it funny, commenting that the little guy just needed a bit of courage to negotiate. The young man bites into a piece of cookie left in his hands while observing the peaceful forest. However, the empty wrapper ends up falling to the ground next to some seeds and peach leftovers. He wipes his hands and decides he is done with breakfast, planning to continue his exploration through the ruin. But the boy is caught off guard when the mutant monkey hangs upside down from the branch right in front of his face. The little monkey gives a cute upside-down roar and opens its hand, revealing a glowing item it was holding tightly. Wei Dao curiously examines the luminous object, wondering if it might be some kind of magic seed. The boy focuses his visual perception spell to analyze the properties of that unknown item. The system instantly reveals it is a Renka celestial peach seed, an extremely valuable mystical relic capable of sprouting a legendary tree. The youth's eyes widen in complete shock, unable to believe the little monkey just handed him a rank S item. He steps closer carefully and gently touches the glowing seed floating before him. The boy makes a comical face of greed and awe at his divine luck, wondering where that little monkey got such an absurd treasure. The little monkey celebrates by hopping with joy, very pleased to see the human's excited reaction. Awkward about the size of the gift, Wei Dao scratches his head and confesses he's already out of cookies, suggesting he pay the debt back later. Hearing that, the mutant monkey gets extremely furious and starts fuming, stomping its foot on the forest floor. Wei Dao tries desperately to calm the animal down, but the angry mutant creature charges at him like a real high-speed projectile. Giving no time to react, the monkey hits the boy's stomach with a crushing headbutt that sends him flying backward with full force. The youth slides on his back across the sand, yelling in pain for Handsome's help to hold off the furious beast. The enraged little monkey keeps gesturing in the air, but stops abruptly as it comes face to face with the imposing blue, armored skeleton general blocking its path. Wei Dao's new Rankus warrior executes a swift sword slash that cuts the air, making the small monkey jump high and fright at such attack power. Wei Dao stands up panting while holding his sore ribs, admitting that mutant monkey hits incredibly hard for its size. He straightens up and tries to negotiate with the creature again, offering to write an IOU for cookies as soon as they get out of there. The mutant monkey crosses its arms, pouting stubbornly, leaving the boy looking foolish in front of it. Wei Dao sighs and thinks to himself that the intelligent monsters in that mysterious ruin are definitely not easily hustled in negotiations. Then an excellent idea sparks in Wei Dao's mind and he cracks a very mischievous smirk. He walks over to the little mutant monkey and starts listing an endless variety of delicious, juicy dishes, asking if it would like to try them. The youth keeps reciting the banquet of the gods while the little monkey watches fascinated, already picturing the food and drooling from sheer hunger. The boy proposes a direct deal, offering to sign a master-servant contract in exchange for taking it out of there to eat everything. Wei Dao guarantees that as long as the little guy tags along, he will eat like a true king every day, while his skeletons hold up a cheering banner in the background. The little monkey puts a hand on its chin thoughtfully, seriously weighing the unbeatable perks of that gastronomic offer. Completely convinced and with its eyes shining with pure happiness, the animal lets out several happy squeaks to accept the deal. Wei Dao crouches down satisfied and pulls out a sharp dagger to begin the blood contract sealing process. The youth makes a small prick on his finger and joins his drop of blood with the little monkey's. The drops merge in the center of a large red magic circle that appears on the forest floor. The system blinks, confirming the successful master-servant contract at the golden-furred creature, which is wrapped in strong reddish energy. Wei Dao's jaw drops seeing his new level 35 pet has 3 powerful Rankus skills. The boy slaps his forehead seeing the contract terms demanding he feed the animal fine dishes, desperately begging the system to stop reading the list. The little monkey pulls on the boy's pants, repeating the names of its favorite dishes, leaving Wei Dao surprised that the animal can already speak the human language. The youth guarantees he will find a way to feed it very well once they get out, making the animal praise its new master's good conscience. Wei Dao pets his new companion's head and decides to name him Great Sage, thinking the name is imposing and perfect for the creature. The little monkey flashes a huge smile of satisfaction, celebrating that it really likes its new combat name. With everything settled, the young summoner hops onto Peppa and announces it is time to go look for the other academy freshmen. Carrying Great Sage on his shoulders, the boy leads the way through the forest as a few hours pass quickly on that exploration. Along the way, the ground gets covered with the defeated forms of dozens of gigantic centipedes and scorpions that tried to ambush them. Thanks to all this continuous hunting, a new level up light surrounds Wei Dao to confirm his evolution to level 29. The golden-furred monkey points to the horizon, letting him know it senses the presence of a large group of humans nearby. Wei Dao commands his skeletal mount to advance at top speed toward the indicated clearing. In the distance, the youth spots a massive rocky valley where a literal crowd of students and officers is gathered. In the middle of the makeshift camp, the 3 students from earlier are waiting next to the bone boars the boy lent them. The young summoner appears imposingly riding on Peppa, watching in surprise the huge amount of survivors gathered in that sandy valley. The freshmen recognize him immediately and run over, pointing excitedly at the cute little monkey the boy is carrying on his shoulder. Wei Dao gets off his mount and jogs over to his acquaintances, curiously asking what exactly happened around there. The blue-clad warrior explains seriously that the ruin's energy core was located right in the center of that cave region. Wei Dao flashes a big smile noticing the magic seed on his shoulder, excitedly asking if they just need to capture the energy core for everyone to finally escape from there. However, the red-haired boy shows a very worried expression and warns that the mission is far from simple. The warrior details that the ruin's core is fiercely guarded by a colossal creature known as the Great Mother, a terrible beast that commands an endless army of monstrous insects. He explains that the day before, over 100,000 hunters and specialists tried to raid the creature's nest in a coordinated attack. But the warrior concludes with a heavy heart that the result of that grand battle was a true tragedy, leaving behind only broken weapons and defeated fighters who failed to even scratch the central core.